The main character is a powerful wizard who saved humanity from monsters and their leader. After the final battle, he died from exhaustion but woke up 50 years later in a teenager's body. Now, he joins a magic school to regain his top rank. Atsumu is surprised to be alive since he used up all his mana. He feels confused looking at a different face in the mirror. A doctor and a nurse enter and call him Minato, which confuses him even more. The doctor checks his wounds and is shocked to see they are totally healed. He remembers the boy was in a bad car crash just a day ago and was unconscious. The doctor thinks it looks like holy magic. Minato is puzzled by the mention of a car crash and explains that his body heals itself with holy power. He asks about his mana, but the staff does not understand him. He mentions fighting monsters during the Great Disaster, which shocks everyone. The doctor asks for his name and the current year. The boy says he is Atsumu and thinks it is 1970. The doctor believes he has memory loss and tells him his name is Minato and it is actually 2022. Minato finds this hard to believe until he sees the modern thin TVs and the date on a calendar. He also sees a slim device in the nurse's hand and realizes he is in the future. The doctor explains that the disaster he mentioned happened 50 years ago and never occurred again. Minato asks about the monsters, and the doctor says the world is now peaceful with almost no monsters left. This makes the boy happy. The doctor mentions that the hero Atsumu died 50 years ago and is a world legend. He does not believe the boy is that hero. The protagonist figures he must have been reincarnated into Minato's body. A week later, he goes to his new home and sees his room. He feels bad for the original Minato, whose parents died when he was little. He was kicked out by foster parents and sent to a bad school, living only on his inheritance. The hero does not know about reincarnation magic and wonders if a god did this. He finds a magic school ID and thinks it is cool because those schools did not exist before. Suddenly, a phone rings. He does not know how to use it and sees a call from Tadano. He ignores it, but a text arrives. Tadano says he knows the boy left the hospital and tells him to get back to school because he needs money. The next morning, the boy arrives at the academy and looks around. It is thrilling for him to return to school as an adult. While soaking in the moment, he spots a student using magic on a training doll. However, Minato feels let down by the display and wonders why everyone has such pathetic mana. After watching others, he realizes they are all terrible. It is truly hard to believe, especially since he remembers that even rookies from his era were 10 times stronger than these kids. He honestly doubts they will ever succeed as mages. Even in a peaceful time, he cannot understand why magic has declined so much. Eventually, he enters his classroom and finds his seat. He starts feeling excited about his school life and wonders if he has any friends there. Suddenly, a red-haired boy appears with 2 other kids. He asks why the hero ignored his texts, since he is just Minato. Since the protagonist does not recognize him, he politely asks for his name. This makes Tadano angry, so he kicks the desk while shouting his name again. He calls Minato weak trash, but our hero does not take him seriously. Then, he remembers this is the guy who kept calling him. He assumes Tadano is a friend. Tadano smiles wickedly and holds out his hand for money. Thinking it is a friendly gesture, Minato shakes his hand firmly, hoping they can get along. Tadano gets furious and grabs his collar, demanding cash. He tries to scare Minato, believing he still has plenty of inheritance left. Finally, Minato understands the situation and realizes his past self was being bullied. Tadano tries to land a punch to humble him, but right then, a beautiful blue-haired girl enters the room. She greets everyone warmly. Her pretty smile calms Tadano down, so he lets the hero go, though he makes it clear he expects the money later. Minato is annoyed, but the bully finally leaves. Class begins, and the teacher talks about the Great Disaster, also known as the Final Calamity. 50 years ago, monsters appeared everywhere, and humanity lost all hope. Yet, the sage Atsumu remained determined to save everyone. He never gave up and wiped out the monsters alone. Finally, he faced the demon god who caused the disaster. Atsumu gave his life to win, and since that day, the evil has not returned. The teacher then asks the class about the legendary sage. The blue-haired girl from before, named Mizuwa, raises her hand. The teacher lets her speak, and she explains that Atsumu was the first mage to survive the disaster and the reason their school exists. Her eyes shine with joy as she calls Atsumu a hero and an idol for every mage in the world. The teacher confirms she is right and teaches the class about the sage who first mastered magic. The academy was built to create more mages like him, the strongest in history. The teacher tells them to study his life for an upcoming test. The hero feels incredibly embarrassed hearing everyone praise him like this. He did not expect such torture and begins to regret joining the school. He remembers the doctor's words and thinks magic is weak now because the world is at peace. He looks out the window and smiles, enjoying his quiet life. Finally, the teacher ends the class and mentions the magic power test tomorrow. Tadano approaches again and asks if he heard the news. He is excited because he thinks it will be funny to see Minato's weak magic. Our hero wonders why the bully won't shut up and walks away. However, Tadano points out that even his parents had no magic. The bully calls him an orphan and laughs at him. At last, the protagonist starts talking back. Consequently, Tadano becomes furious after hearing Minato insult him. Thus, losing his cool, he immediately begins casting a fire spell, which severely shocks his classmates, who try to stop him from using such magic indoors. Despite that, Tadano fires the blast directly at the boy, hoping to finish him. Immediately, Mizuha rushes to intervene, but she is, unfortunately, too late. However, as the flames approach, the protagonist stands perfectly calm. The attack hits him directly, causing the other students to recoil. Afterward, Mizuha scolds the bully, warning him not to use magic in a senseless fight that could hurt someone. In response, Tadano quickly blames Minato, refusing to take any responsibility. Naturally, the students worry about the boy, but as the smoke fades, Minato appears completely unharmed. The class is stunned as he admits he was caught a bit off guard. Terrified, Tadano wonders how he is still standing after a direct hit. The hero easily blocked the level 1 spell with a passive barrier without even trying. Thus, he initially ignored the insults because Tadano is just a kid, but now he decides the bully needs a lesson. With a cold stare, he walks toward him. Consequently, Tadano shakes with fear as Minato releases a surge of pressure. The students freeze in place, unable to move, and Mizuha wonders what is happening. Minato reaches out his hand, and Tadano nearly collapses, but the teacher suddenly enters the room. He asks about the noise and if magic was used inside. Minato calmly tells him nothing happened and suggests the sound came from outside. The teacher is skeptical but accepts the story, ordering everyone to sit while he looks for the culprit. Minato smiles and decides to leave false evidence to end the matter. The students, including Mizuha, are left in shock, while Tadano fumbles in frustration. Therefore, the hero realizes these students are too weak to kill a monster. Even though the disaster ended years ago, he knows threats might remain and decides to investigate. That night, he uses magic circles to enter the ruins of the old city. Looking at the wreckage, he initially finds no monsters and assumes the police are doing their job. Suddenly, he senses a monster and a person nearby. He finds a creature cornering a white-haired girl who is begging for her life. The monster prepares to eat her, but the hero steps in and kills it with a single blow. He notices she has a police badge and realizes she is a magic officer. He tells her to be more careful next time before vanishing through a magic circle. She is left wondering who he was, amazed that he defeated the beast without a chant. Minato is glad his face was hidden, as he wants to avoid attention. Furthermore, he is surprised a police officer almost died to such a weak creature, confirming that this generation is much feebler than his own. He smiles, realizing the world needs his strength again, and decides to clear the area of monsters. The next morning at the school, the teacher tells everyone to prepare for the magic power test. He explains they will measure both their attributes and mana levels for their future careers. Minato wonders why they need a device for something as basic as magic perception. Mizuha then steps forward and calls out to him, making the other students wonder why she wants to talk to Minato. She introduces herself as Yuika, the second daughter of a noble magic house. Since he doesn't understand what a noble family is, she explains they are the leading houses of magicians. However, he doesn't recognize her name and simply remembers the nobles from his own era. Observing her weak aura, he wonders why she brags about her family with such a pathetic magic level. Mizuha asks why he's uninterested, hoping he would be more grateful. Meanwhile, Tadano grits his teeth in jealousy, wondering what they are talking about. Consequently, Minato asks why a noble would talk to a lowlife like him. Although she gets annoyed, she tries to keep her dignity as a noble. He honestly questions if she has a mental issue. Mizuha recalls the blast that did 0 damage to him and wonders about the reason behind it. She tries to bring it up, but the teacher interrupts for the measurements. Minato takes the opportunity to walk away, smiling. Therefore, Mizuha decides to wait and see his real powers during the assessment. Soon, Tadano confidently unleashes his power, showing 1000 magic with a fire attribute. He celebrates his improvement, but Minato notes the standards are the same as in his time. Next, Mizuha steps forward and releases her magic. Her attribute is water, and her power is 2000. Everyone is surprised, and the teacher praises them both as top-tier magicians. The students start praising them too, yet Minato is disappointed and calls it a joke, thinking 2000 is just amateur level. Mizuha looks smug, trying to show off. He wonders why she is looking at him so proudly. Suddenly, the teacher calls him for his assessment. As he walks up, he hears students mocking his past results. Despite being good at studies, he ranked lowest in magic. Tadano, thinking Minato has zero talent, looks forward to the embarrassment. Mizuha wonders how much power he is hiding but doubts he can surpass her. Irritated, Minato remembers how annoying it was to stand out in his past life. He considers holding back but ultimately decides to go all out with a smile, challenging the machine to handle the greatest sage in history. Suddenly, the machine glows and a beam of light shoots out of the building, noticed by other students. Mizuha is confused as the device acts strangely. It glows brighter before a huge explosion breaks it. The students scramble to save themselves from the blast. Our boy is disappointed the machine broke, thinking he barely even tried. He doubts anyone could actually sense his true power. The teacher asks if everyone is fine, and they assure him they are. He asks Minato if he is okay, noting he was lucky to be in the middle of the blast. The teacher wonders if the device malfunctioned and worries it is now impossible to measure Minato's stats. Minato asks why he is so concerned. The teacher says he wanted to split the class for combat practice but can't decide without results. Thus, the teacher asks Tadano to take Minato in his group. Tadano agrees, seeing a chance to bully the boy. The teacher is relieved it's Tadano. The bully approaches Minato, saying he looks forward to combat class with an evil expression. Eventually, the students reach the ruins of the city. The teacher explains that monsters still live in the area destroyed by the calamity. Magicians and police regularly fight them here, and students are required to help. The teacher tells them not to stress since pros handled most threats. Our boy wasn't expecting a practical class. He hopes the students can handle a few monsters in their groups. However, he feels weird as he senses monsters nearby, remembering he cleaned the place properly just last night. Consequently, he finds no signs of a recent disaster nearby and questions why more monsters keep appearing in the city ruins. Despite this being a practical class, our boy is surprised to see the students acting so carefree. Meanwhile, Mizuha carefully observes Minato for some reason. As the teacher starts the session, he hopes everyone works well together. However, Tadano notices the protagonist and approaches with his group, advising him to stay put and avoid getting in their way. Tadano makes it clear he won't go easy if Minato acts out again. The protagonist honestly doesn't understand why they don't just ignore him if they hate him so much. Thus, Tadano becomes angry and orders him not to talk back, wondering why Mizuha even speaks to someone so trashy. Our boy is astonished by this and realizes that Tadano actually has feelings for Mizuha. Enraged, the bully prepares to strike, but the protagonist notices something and warns them to stop. Tadano believes this is just a stupid trick to save himself. However, when he finally looks behind, the whole group finds a tall demon soldier standing there. They all start sweating, questioning why such a monster is in an abandoned city. The other bullies hype up Tadano, believing he can win. He assures them he will, despite his anxious expression, and attacks with fire magic. Although an explosion occurs, the smoke clears to show the monster is unscathed. Tadano is terrified to see not even a scratch. Our boy reveals that pathetic level 1 magic won't hurt a demon soldier. As the monster moves forward, the group falls to their knees, shivering in fear. Tadano even pisses his pants as he accepts his end. But just as he is about to be killed, the demon soldier senses our boy's true power. It becomes scared and takes a step back. Minato is surprised the monster could tell who was the strongest. He faces the demon alone and unleashes his power. The monster goes all out, summoning multiple magic circles, while the bullies assume they are all dead. The monster uses a level 2 spell called Rock Break, but the hero stands unfazed. He simply uses a level 1 fire arrow. His spell completely destroys the massive rock and hits the demon, causing a huge explosion. Afterward, the gang is shocked to see the monster is dead. Tadano wonders if Minato is behind this but refuses to believe it. However, our boy lets him know that in his hands, even level 1 magic is enough. He finds it strange that monsters are appearing again, since he cleared the area yesterday. He worries it might be a bad omen of a new disaster, and remembers the loved ones he lost in his past life. Becoming determined, he vows to save humanity again. Meanwhile, the other bullies admit they saw him win, leaving Tadano frustrated. At the same time, Mizuha observes everything from the shadows, surprised by what she has learned about Minato. Her classmates are absolutely astonished, so they immediately begin praising her. However, she feels irritated and wonders why ordinary people are impressed so easily. In her mind, She believes it is simply because she is a genius. Suddenly, she spots Tadano's group. Mizuha asks her own team to handle the remaining tasks and leaves. She suspects Tadano might be bullying the protagonist again and feels strangely excited. Thus, she quickly runs to watch them so she doesn't miss the opportunity. She stands behind a wall and takes a peek. Mizuha becomes shocked as she sees a demon soldier. She truly doubts they can take such a monster on in battle. But despite being scared, the girl decides to help them since she belongs to the Mizuha family. She is confident she can do something. Mizuha runs toward the group, yelling at everyone to start running. Suddenly, a huge wave of fire magic gets launched in front of her and hits the demon soldier. Consequently, Minato takes down the strong monster in one single attack. Mizuha is shocked and wonders if our boy is actually behind all of this. She remembers Minato used to be a shy kid with trash magic powers. The girl is unable to believe she is looking at the same person. She was watching closely and didn't even hear any chanting. Mizuha doesn't understand how it is possible for him to defeat a demon soldier with just level 1 magic without even chanting a single spell. It is all too hard for her to believe. She understands that every demon's strength is determined by the number of crystals they have on their body. This method is also used to establish a ranking between demons. Magical beasts are rank 6. Demon soldiers are rank 5. Demon captains are rank 4. Demon generals take the 3rd rank. The demon king comes at rank 2. And lastly, the strongest demon, also known as the demon god, is rank 1. These numbers are all fixed for each demon. So, every modern magician knows at least level 3 magic is required to defeat a demon soldier. Therefore, she doesn't believe level 1 magic is enough to beat it. Minato starts walking in her direction. She knows she has no reason to hide, so she peeks again and looks at the protagonist. He calls her out for peeking around like this. She becomes embarrassed and questions how he found out. Our boy thinks it would be stupid not to know since she is a mage. Mizuha gets confused. He is disappointed to see they really can't sense magic at all. The boy starts walking away. She tries to stop him, but he doesn't listen and keeps moving forward. Mizuha demands an explanation and starts running after him, but finds no one in the alley. Minato jumps up a building and feels irritated as he sees the girl doing her best to find him. He decides to check around for monsters and learns there are no demon soldiers left in the area. But the number of magical beasts is still quite large. After seeing Tadano's pathetic performance, he doubts other students are capable of taking on magical beasts. The protagonist decides to get rid of a few magical beasts himself. His body starts glowing suddenly as he activates his magic. He is able to cover the entire area around the abandoned city, so he pulls out 2 magic circles and uses his level 2 magic called Barret. Multiple beams of light shoot out into the sky and spread across the city. Tadano and his group notice the beams of light. They think they are seeing shooting stars. Mizuha recognizes it as magic and wonders who unleashed multiple abilities at once. Somewhere inside the ruins, 2 students become surrounded by magical beasts. They become hopeless as they see multiple monsters approaching them at once. They both give up and accept their fate. But as a monster moves forward to kill the girl, it suddenly stops and starts screaming in pain as it gets hit by the strong beam of light. The students ask each other if they are fine. The protagonist watches everything from above. He feels amazing killing all the monsters. He sees all of them dropping dead and suddenly realizes he overdid it and ended up killing almost all the monsters in the city. Minato becomes concerned and wonders if the class will still proceed after this. Consequently, he regrets not holding back. He uses his magic circles to move through the city and finds a hidden alley to land, as he doesn't want to show his powers more than needed. However, all the attention is getting annoying. He eventually joins his classmates and teachers. The teacher examines a dead magical beast and wonders why so many were left, as he thought most had been hunted down. He believes a skilled person killed them since taking down a monster in one hit isn't easy. Furthermore, he remembers the magic used, and knows that firing so many magic bullets falls under the null attribute. Astonished, he admits he has never seen such a thing before. He admits things would have been dangerous without those bullets, knowing that firing even 2 is impressive. Thus, the teacher is in disbelief, understanding that if the count reaches 6 or more, no average student could use such magic. The students yell in frustration, asking why they had to face so many monsters and almost die. The teacher bows and apologizes. He recalls the police confirming the area was clear and regrets not double-checking. Therefore, he genuinely apologizes for putting the class in danger. A student asks if a savior appeared, but the teacher says it was likely an illegal magician. In his heart, he thanks the unknown hero. Minato smiles as he listens to the teacher indirectly praise him. He notices students discussing the magic bullets, all wondering what they were. He is relieved everyone is okay, even his bullies. However, Tadano grits his teeth in frustration. The whole group stares at the protagonist. Mizuha remembers seeing Minato defeat a demon soldier with level 1 magic followed by infinite magic. She wonders if he is behind both. Since fire and null are different, she doubts any student has both. She calms down, thinking it is impossible, and assumes someone else used the null attribute. Still, she doesn't understand how he beat the demon soldier alone. Tadano's group suggests he might be behind the lasers too. Tadano calls it impossible, but his friend reminds him of the demon soldier. Consequently, Tadano becomes angry and warns his friend to shut up. He makes it clear he will never believe Minato is capable of such feats, thinking he is hiding something. His lackeys agree, remembering how much of a coward Minato used to be. Tadano screams in rage, saying he will prove the boy is cheating. He is determined to force Minato to reveal his true identity. After school, Minato walks out and gets surrounded by the gang. Tadano steps forward, saying he has been waiting. The protagonist feels irritated and advises them to study magic instead. Tadano believes he has no right to speak since he cheats. Minato is confused, but Tadano insists he is using cheap tricks. Tired of the nonsense, the hero realizes there is no point in reasoning. Tadano orders him to follow and praises him for not running. Minato clarifies there is no reason to flee. Tadano doesn't believe him and throws a punch, knowing the boy won't use magic in a public park. The punch hits his face, but he remains unfazed. The bullies gang up on him, but he remains patient and doesn't fight back. Tadano asks what's wrong, assuming he is helpless without magic. He continues attacking, making it clear he won't stop even if the boy begs. The protagonist feels disappointed because the attacks don't even scratch him. His power automatically defends him from physical hits. Annoyed, he decides to act hurt to satisfy them. Suddenly, someone appears and questions why they are attacking him. Tadano looks back and sees it's Mizuha. The bully becomes embarrassed and tries to say they are just playing. However, she doesn't fall for it and calls him out. She is disappointed to see her classmates acting this way and wonders if they feel no shame. Consequently, Tadano feels humiliated but chooses to blame everything on Minato. He believes Mizuha hates him now solely because of the protagonist. As she grabs the boy's hand to drag him away from the mess, Tadano's jealousy peaks. Thus, he stops holding back and completely loses his patience. He prepares a magic attack aimed at our hero, which only makes Minato more annoyed. Tadano and his lackeys activate their powers, determined to end him, while Mizuha questions their reckless behavior. Suddenly, the entire group launches a fire attack at the protagonist. Although Mizuha knows how dangerous this is and tries to save him, she is unfortunately too late. Minato takes the blast head-on. Tadano laughs confidently, believing no cheap tricks can save the boy from such power. His followers worry if they killed him, but Tadano calls them stupid and mocks their concern. He quickly invents a story, claiming they were just practicing and Minato accidentally got caught in the crossfire. However, as the smoke clears, Minato speaks up. He explains he was being patient since they are just brats, but realizes their stupidity requires a real punishment. Therefore, he prepares to teach them a lesson. Tadano is stunned to see him alive after such a powerful assault. Minato becomes serious, telling them they shouldn't have involved Mizuha in their petty fight. Tadano screams in rage, blaming both of them for making a fool out of him. He summons another magic circle, declaring they will keep attacking until the boy drops dead. In response, the hero pulls out a tiny, simple magic circle. The bullies laugh, calling it crappy and assuming he is bluffing. They all attack at once with everything they have, hoping he finally dies. However, the protagonist uses Magic Drain. Weird green tentacles emerge from his small circle and ensnare the entire gang. They become terrified and try to break free but fail miserably as their strength is sucked away. One by one, the bullies fall unconscious. Minato is disappointed, as he expected them to last a bit longer. He simply hopes they reflect on their actions after this. Meanwhile, Mizuha is completely confused, wondering if she actually just saw magic. She is amazed the whole gang was knocked out but doesn't understand how. When Minato tries to leave, Mizuha stops him to ask what happened and how he cast such a spell when he couldn't even use basic magic days ago. She demands to know who he really is. The protagonist is annoyed and advises her to stop asking weird questions. Surprisingly, Mizuha starts blushing. She thanks him for saving her and asks him to stay, but he vanishes before she can finish. Later that night, Minato returns to the ruins of the city. He had a bad feeling during the day and decided to investigate. He finds more monsters even though he cleared the area earlier, which he views as a dark omen. While he is confident he can handle this area alone, he senses monsters appearing in other locations as well. He worries the police and the weak modern mages can't handle a national crisis. Since he can't be everywhere at once, he decides to start by quietly wiping out every monster in the ruins while avoiding attention. He uses his magic bullets to kill several beasts at once. Nearby, a drunk man wanders into a dangerous spot. A monster appears behind him, but the hero kills it instantly. The man notices a flash but blames it on his imagination and walks away. Consequently, our boy hopes the stranger didn't see him. He quickly uses his magic circle to leap away, yet someone nearby catches the movement and records everything on a phone. This person is astonished, believing the footage will definitely go viral, so he posts it online immediately. The next day, the principal calls Tadano, Minato, and Mizuha to the office. The teacher explains that using magic outside school is a serious offense that leads to immediate expulsion, then allows them to explain. Tadano instantly points at the protagonist, lying that Minato started the fight. Minato is impressed by how easily the bully lies and realizes he must defend himself despite how annoying it is. However, before he can speak, Mizuha speaks up to defend him. She tells the principal that the others are lying, revealing that Tadano and his friends were actually bullying Minato and attacked him with magic first. The teacher listens as she explains that Minato only used magic for self-defense and had no other choice. Minato is surprised by her help. Tadano tries to claim innocence, but Mizuha shuts him up, calling him a bad person for bullying others and then shifting the blame when faced with consequences. She honestly doesn't understand how he feels, no shame. Tadano, still arrogant, calls the protagonist trash and claims he doesn't belong in the school, justifying his violence as cleaning up. Mizuha makes it clear that Tadano is the real trash. He continues to brag, claiming he is at the top of the class and the only one worthy of being with her. She is disgusted, telling him there is no chance she would ever choose someone like him. Tadano is shocked by the rejection, especially since she calls him out for his violent nature and the weird timing of his confession. Minato thinks she might have overdone it, but he understands her point. Eventually, the principal decides he has no room for students who selfishly hurt others. Thus, he expels Tadano and his entire group. The lackeys try to defend themselves by saying they were just following orders, but it doesn't work. The teacher then allows Minato and Mizuha to return to class. As they leave the office, Mizuha fumes, calling Tadano the worst. Our boy asks what will happen to them, and she explains they can never become magicians now. She then asks why he didn't speak up, and he admits she didn't give him a chance. Suddenly, he remembers something, and when she asks what's wrong, he mentions how she always tries to save him. He calls her a good girl for helping him out in class and with the principal. This causes her to blush uncontrollably and run toward the classroom in embarrassment. Minato smiles as he watches her go. He reflects on the original Minato, wondering if he was bullied to death or if the car accident was real. Regardless, he feels relieved the bullies were punished and hopes this makes up for what happened. Meanwhile, the principal informs a senior student about the fight since it involved a member of the Mizuha family. The senior student thanks him for the information. She asks the principal to give her regards to her father and mentions that her family plans to invest in the school. As she walks out with her friend, the principal wonders if Minato is actually absurdly strong, since beating multiple mages at once is nearly impossible. He believes no normal student could win unless they possess some hidden mysterious strength. While he wonders if the boy is stronger than them, the blue-haired senior, Ruka, denies it. Still, she is curious and wants to meet him to confirm his abilities. She even considers if her little sister should be expelled depending on Minato's competence. This girl is Ruka from the third-year class, accompanied by her friend Ryuji. Meanwhile, Minato feels demotivated now that his life is quiet again. He hears classmates talking about a black mage and wonders if it relates to the magic nobles, but he decides to ignore it for now. Suddenly, the teacher calls him out for a reassessment, explaining that students who couldn't be measured before must try again. Mizuha notices this and feels glad she can finally learn more about him. However, she is surprised to see her older sister, Ruka, and Ryuji entering the room. The teacher then announces it is Minato's turn to start the power test. Remembering how he destroyed the machine last time, the hero decides to be careful and hold back. He tries to suppress his power, but suddenly feels a wave of extreme fatigue and begins breathing heavily. The teacher checks the results and is shocked, as are the onlookers. For some reason, his attribute shows as none, and his power is only 100. This puts a smug smile on Ryuji's face. Other students mock him, calling it the lowest score in their year and labeling him useless since he lacks an attribute. Ryuji assumes the principal's story was a lie, doubting the boy defeated any delinquents. Ruka feels disappointed and decides to leave, seeing no reason to stay. The The students notice how tired Minato looks just from the test, which they assume is because of his low mana. The teacher tries to comfort him, saying power isn't everything, but Mizuha doesn't believe her eyes. She clearly remembers him killing a demon soldier and using both fire and null attributes. She wonders what kind of trick he is using, as she has never heard of anyone adjusting their power like this. In reality, the protagonist is relieved. He used magic manipulation to fake the results, even though it took a toll on his body. As he leaves, he finds Mizuha, who claims she was only there out of curiosity. Suddenly, Ruka stops them both in the hall. Minato asks who they are, and she introduces herself and Ryuji. Recognizing the family name, he asks if she wants something. She claims to have zero interest in him and turns to her sister. Mizuha becomes worried as Ruka expresses her disappointment that her sister couldn't even handle a few delinquents. Ruka is angry that Mizuha had to be saved by someone with only 100 power and tells her to just quit the academy. Mizuha is crushed as Ruka reminds her that she loses every match in academics, sports, and magic. Ruka believes her sister isn't good enough to be a mage and should join a normal school. Mizuha begins to cry, unable to find the words to defend herself. Her sister confirms if she understands everything, and Mizuha anxiously answers that she does. However, Minato finally intervenes and calls Ruka arrogant. She asks him to repeat his words with a cold expression, but he points out how she's been talking nonsense without stopping, not even caring to listen to her little sister. It's clear to him that she's filled with arrogance. Thus, Ruka makes it clear it's a family conversation, so he has no right to jump in. He's surprised to hear her calling it a conversation when all he hears is her ordering her sister around without giving her a chance to talk. She becomes angry, but our boy continues, believing even she doesn't have the right to dictate someone else's way of living. He calls her out and tells her she's horrible for forcing her sister to give up on her dreams. Ruka confidently says her incompetent sister lacks the talent to become a mage, since she can't even defeat her. Mizuha starts crying and agrees with her older sister, losing belief in herself. She tried to convince herself she's a genius, but she couldn't even defeat her big sister once. However, Minato confidently says she can win against Ruka. He starts smiling, which confuses everyone. Ruka asks if he's challenging her, and he requests some time since it's impossible for Mizuha to win right now. Ruka gives them 2 weeks, suggesting a 2-on-2 magic duel. He's surprised but agrees, calling the situation nonsense. He asks Mizuha if she's willing to do it with a smile, and she calms down, stopping her crying. Mizuha becomes determined and agrees to the challenge. Once it's decided, Minato asks them never to bring this up again if he wins. Ruka bets her sister will have to leave the academy if she and Ryuji win. She warns them she won't hold back, so they must prepare. After a while, Mizuha and Minato go to the rooftop. She requests his help and hopes he can teach her magic so she can improve quickly. He finally understands why he was called up there. He asks if she's really sure about learning from someone with only 100 magic power, but she doesn't fall for it. She already knows he's hiding his real strength and believes he is much stronger than her. He notices she isn't backing off. She assumes he knows how to get stronger, which is why he challenged her sister. He knows Ruka is a control freak by nature, which is why he provoked her, but he can't tell Mizuha that. She bows down and begs for his assistance. Finally, he gives up and agrees to help her. He warns her in advance that she must follow all his instructions, and there's no going back. She agrees to all his conditions instantly. Minato finds it hard to decline since she's begging and he already needs to prepare after seeing the monsters in the city. Raising a mage seems like a promising idea. He decides to begin her training today and looks for a place to practice. Mizuha starts blushing and invites him to her place with a shy expression. After a while, they reach her home. He's astonished by the huge house, but she thinks it's natural since her father is a noble. Mizuha suddenly realizes this is her first time inviting a guy over. She wonders if he found the invitation strange, even though she has no dirty intentions. Minato suggests they should start, but he notices she's daydreaming and calls her Yuika. The girl becomes embarrassed to hear her first name, but he says he's just avoiding confusion since her sister is also Mizuha. She's a bit disappointed by his answer. He asks if she prefers another name, but she agrees to Yuika. So, he starts the training and asks her about her magic power. She thinks it is simple and explains that magic power is just energy inside the body used for spells. However, he asks her about incantations next. Yuika confidently answers that they are like programs that automatically turn magic into attacks. He then questions if there is any way to increase one's power, but she says no, believing it is determined at birth. Yuika smiles proudly, thinking she answered perfectly. Therefore, he lets her know all her answers are wrong. With a disappointed expression, she starts to cry and asks if he is calling her stupid. The protagonist genuinely feels bad, wondering how the current mages became so foolish in only 50 years. He begins explaining that magic is not just in the body, but is available in nature and the surroundings. Furthermore, he clarifies that spells are simply tools to support the magic craft, and that it is indeed possible to increase one's power intentionally. She finds this hard to believe and calls it a lie, since it contradicts everything the Academy teaches. He doesn't care if she believes him or not, but he intends to teach her these 3 things. Thus, he orders her to sit and explains he will channel his power into her body so she can learn to feel it. She is surprised to learn that sensing magic is even possible. He makes it clear she won't get stronger if she can't feel it. He orders her to close her eyes and begins the process. He unleashes his power, but finds she still senses nothing. He releases even more, wondering how she can be so blind to such a high degree of magic. Finally, Yuika feels a heat on her back. He teaches her that this is called magic perception. She finally understands his point, and he orders her to memorize the sensation. He explains that since magic is in nature, her first goal is to find it and get used to it. She smiles, promising to master it quickly as a noble. However, our boy doubts she can do it since she struggled even when he poured massive amounts of power into her. He starts to think she might not be suited to be a mage. A week passes and Yuika starts crying, admitting she still cannot sense magic. This is a huge letdown for the protagonist, who is shocked that a week wasn't enough for such a simple task. Although she practiced hard, he realizes she is just a slow learner. Since they are running out of time, he decides to pour magic into her again. He touches her back and instructs her to open her eyes. She hesitates but is suddenly surprised to see a magical aura around her body. She smiles, finally understanding what magic power truly is. Yuika is amazed by her new skill and tries to measure Minato's level, but for some reason she senses almost nothing from him, which leaves her confused. He praises her efforts, though she claims it is only natural for a genius. Now that she has perception, he tells her they will work on adjusting her magic next. He explains how to use the exact amount of power needed for any spell, focusing only on efficiency. He also instructs her to use her power to its absolute limit, so her capacity increases upon recovery. He believes she can follow these steps now, even though they contradict the Academy's basics. Yuika assures him she believes in his words and smiles, saying she does not doubt him anymore. He is happy to hear her opinion has changed and decides to start the next stage of their training. The protagonist asks her to step back and get ready as they are about to spar. She confirms she does not mind, looking forward to seeing his true powers. Yuika uses level 1 aqua sorcery and launches multiple water attacks, but our boy blocks them all effortlessly, which surprises her. She does not understand how he did it, as he used a level 1 barrier with non-attribute magic. He makes it clear that if she cannot destroy such a weak shield, there is no hope of winning against her sister. Desperate, she starts throwing ice bullets. However, he explains she must keep moving while attacking, as stopping will surely cause her to lose against a skilled mage. She becomes frustrated and throws more attacks, but eventually gets tired and gives up. He explains it is wrong to use so much magic power without efficiency. If she can adjust the power behind a spell, she will finally be able to attack without incantations. Minato asks her to watch closely and demonstrates how she uses magic by firing a blast at a dummy, then shows her his own method. She realizes the power behind her attacks is much lower than his. He calls her right and explains she won't even need incantations if she learns to adjust her power. She finally understands there is no reason to chant. He confirms this and explains her first step is to learn how to shorten her spells. Once she masters power adjustment, she will have no reason to use incantations at all. He believes this will be useful, so she won't waste effort or mana, making her magic craft much stronger. He orders her to get up and fight again. She thinks it is too soon, but he calls it meaningless otherwise and, with a cold expression, orders her to train like her life depends on it. Terrified by his tone, she falls down. He asks if she is fine, and makes it clear they will do this daily. However, he notices she isn't even hearing him. During the night, our boy enters the city again to check for monsters. Even though he constantly eliminates them, the numbers strangely remain the same. Suddenly, he sees someone being attacked and rushes to help, defeating the beast instantly. He asks the kid if she is okay, but instead of thanking him, she starts taking his picture. He quickly leaves, wondering why people today are like this. He decides to cover his face better next time. The next day, the protagonist starts training with Yuika again. She falls quickly and gets tired as the duel gets closer. He believes her progress is decent, but she is still nowhere near Ruka's level. There is no chance she will succeed at this pace. He tells her it is fine if she wants to quit now, but she gets up and says she has been compared to her sister her entire life. She has been forced to give up many times, but she is determined to keep going and never quit. He warns her she won't succeed like this, so she tells him to be even stricter. He agrees and decides not to hold back anymore. She is happy to hear this and gets ready. They continue to train, and he teaches her many things. As the sun sets, Yuika falls unconscious from the extreme session, and Minato ends up carrying her back. After a couple of days of training together, he finally tells Yuika she is ready to fight her sister. She falls to the ground in total relief. Minato praises her for her hard work and efforts. Thus, she starts smiling as she hears his encouraging words. On the day of their challenge, our boy asks her if she is ready to fight them. She answers positively, but as they are about to enter the academy, they both notice a huge crowd of people. A few news reporters surround them and confirm if they are really seeing Yuika of the noble family. They request a few words regarding the magic duel and question if she is having a fight with her sister. Minato becomes confused. She explains her family is prominent, so since she is about to fight her sister, it is normal for the press to act like this. He is surprised to learn people care so much about two students fighting. He guesses it is because the Mizuha family is very important. Eventually, they all reach the training ground, which is surrounded by a massive audience. He thinks it is a bit too much, but she explains it is rare for students to have duels, so it is more like an event than a challenge. He is a bit surprised to learn all this. Both of them get called to the stage. Yuika gets ready, but all of a sudden, her body starts shaking. He assures her and tells her to just focus on working hard. Thus, she calms down and smiles. Yuika becomes determined and moves forward towards the stage without hesitation. She calls our boy a mysterious person and admits his words really reach her heart. Yuika and Ruka finally come face to face. Ruka is surprised to see her little sister didn't just run away. Yuika confidently confirms it. Ruka calls her rude for believing she can really defeat someone like her older sister, but Yuika makes it clear she is definitely going to succeed. Ruka decides to give her a chance, and thinks she has definitely changed a lot in the past 2 weeks. Yuika is aware her older sister is strong. She realizes the difference between their magic power is extremely huge, but she believes in herself and knows she will definitely win. The beginning of the duel gets announced and both participants get permission to start. Yuika wastes no time and pulls out her magic circle. She tries shortening her chant as well. Ruka begins attacking. Minato observes the match and understands that moving around while shooting magic spells is the basics of a battle. He assumes Ruka is aware of the basics of the battle between two mages at least. In comparison to her, Yuika got so nervous, she completely forgot about the basics and didn't move during the battle. She doesn't have the advantage anymore, even if she reduces her chanting time. Ruka and Yuika attack each other with first-level water magic. Yuika is able to stand her ground against her older sister's attack. She is surprised by her capabilities and believes she has gotten stronger. Ruka admits she has improved her strength in just 2 weeks. Yuika is happy to hear her older sister praising her. However, Ruka humbles her and tells her to stop giggling as it was just a comparison. She is not getting praised. Ruka increases the level of her magic and throws a stronger attack this time. She uses second-level water blitz. Yuika is unable to handle it. She gets knocked down and falls beside the protagonist. He looks at her and knows she is good at enchanting now, which increased her chances of winning. But her older sister is simply too strong for her. Ruka calls him a cruel guy for not even helping her get up, even though he was protecting her before. He tells her there is no need to help her. Ruka doesn't understand what he is trying to say. Suddenly, Yuika actually gets up and shocks her sister. Ruka doesn't understand how she is still standing, even though she got hit by level 2 blitz. Yuika makes it clear she is definitely going to win this match. Yuika has nothing else besides magic craft going on in her life. Even if she ends up losing everything, magic craft is one thing she is never going to give up on. Yuika begins attacking again. Ruka starts attacking as well. She tries her best to stand against her older sister, determined to not give up, but she ends up falling down after overusing her magic power. The announcer tells everyone contestant Yuika used up all her magic power, so Ruka is the victor of this contest. Yuika tries to get up so she can do something to win, but fails. Minato calls it a battle of magic usage based on magical adjustment. He believes his friend lost in terms of the amount of magic power. Ruka asks if he understands now. She calls her little sister talentless, assuming our boy likely feels the same way. Surprisingly, he confirms she is indeed talentless and quite clumsy. He notes that her progress was slow and that she struggles to perform under the pressure of a real fight. However, he tells Ruka that Yuika is a true hard worker who practiced persistently like an idiot. While Ruka remains disappointed by the results, he admits he loves hardworking people who refuse to give up, just like Yuika. Hearing his words, the girl starts sobbing. He then informs everyone that Yuika is his disciple, and he dislikes it when anyone speaks poorly of her so casually. As Yuika weeps uncontrollably, Ruka calls him arrogant, wondering why someone with only 100 magic power is talking so much. Thus, he makes it clear to her he will defeat her using only those 100 points. She thinks he is just spouting nonsense but decides to agree. However, Ruka tells him his next opponent is someone else, as Katsuragi appears, eager for his turn. Ruka advises him to end it quickly, and he assures her he won't need to be told twice. Katsuragi carries Yuika out and tells her to rest, ordering her to watch the battle closely to learn something. She understands, suddenly realizing the pain in her body has vanished and her wounds have healed completely. As he steps onto the stage, our boy admits to himself that winning with only 100 magic power is nearly impossible. Even though he claimed otherwise, he knows he needs absolute focus. The protagonist decides to stick to his 100 power, using a non-attribute attack without any incantations. Since he isn't setting up a barrier this time, he knows a direct hit could be fatal. Still, he finds the situation thrilling. Katsuragi gets ready, apologizing for not holding back, but our boy tells him he is the one who should be careful. The audience cheers for Katsuragi, hoping the challenger doesn't get badly hurt. Ignoring them, the guy activates his 8,000 magic power. Our boy realizes it isn't a huge amount, but since he is limited to 100 today, there is a real chance he could be killed. The second match begins. As they face off, Katsuragi hopes there are no grudges while summoning his circles. He intends to test if Kusanagi really defeated those delinquents by forcing him to withstand a full power attack, but just as he is about to fire, something strikes him on the forehead. The protagonist is disappointed, calling the guy slow. The audience is shocked as the announcer declares Kusanagi the winner. Ruka is stunned to see her friend knocked out by a single hit. She remembers he didn't even use an incantation and wonders what trick he employed. Kusanagi tells her he hopes she's happy the match ended quickly, which only irritates her further. Yuika is also shocked, finding it hard to believe he won. Ruka admits he is strong, but when he claims to be stronger than her too, she warns him to stop lying. She then unleashes her 10,000 magic power. Through his perception, Kusanagi sees she is much stronger than the previous guy. The announcer tells the crowd that something unexpected is happening, as Kusanagi's unique fighting style has drawn massive attention. The third match begins to decide the final victor. Kusanagi uses the same trick, shooting magic bullets at her, but she counters with water magic. Since he only has 100 magic power, he knows he can't affect her unless he hits her forehead directly. He realizes she has already adapted, protecting her head while staying mobile. Ruka persists with water attacks, yet she is shocked to see him standing unfazed. She knows he isn't using magic to block, yet he remains completely dry and unharmed. The audience and Yuika are equally confused, knowing he must be using a secret technique to protect himself. Ruka attacks again, but this time the boy dodges her magic with insane speed. She finally figures out how he is still standing, but she is left completely speechless. Yuika realizes that a magic attack can be countered with another, and even if there is a huge power difference, there is still a way to avoid damage. Everyone knows that is the only way to stay safe. Ruka grits her teeth in frustration, knowing her level 2 techniques have different speeds and mass, making it almost impossible for anyone to remain unscathed. She wonders why the protagonist stands there fearlessly against such strong spells. Minato knows exactly what she is thinking. He believes it is easy to dodge magic if you can sense and detect it clearly, though it requires a lot of courage. Thus, Ruka gets serious and uses a level 3 spell called a Zora Splash. The audience grows concerned, knowing it will be disastrous if he gets hit. Ruka is tired but remains confident he cannot dodge this. However, out of nowhere, she gets hit by a magic bullet and falls to the ground. She doesn't understand how he is still standing and questions his method. He explains that he used a magic draining technique to eat up the spell, simply walking through the center. Ruka is speechless at first, then starts laughing, admitting her defeat. The announcer then declares that Minato has won the match. Yuika runs to the stage, asking if they are both fine. Our boy assures her they are good, smiling as he confirms his victory. She smiles back, becoming truly happy. Ruka decides to keep her promise and gives them her word, allowing them to do whatever they want. Minato is happy it ended well. He noticed that Yuika's wounds earlier weren't that deep, guessing Ruka was probably holding back. Ruka becomes embarrassed, trying to make an excuse, but he points out how much stronger Yuika got in just 2 weeks. He believes Ruka noticed it too and thinks there is no reason to be overprotective anymore. Yuika speaks up determinedly, assuring them she will grow stronger so her sister won't have to worry. Ruka smiles, finally starting to believe in her. Minato feels happy watching the sisters get along, but suddenly he feels an immense amount of pressure and realizes this is abnormal magic. The sky turns red, and the protagonist wonders if the calamity is happening again. Meanwhile, Tadano and his gang are busy searching through Minato's bag. They have lost many people after he proved his power in the duel. His lackeys tell him there are only textbooks, and Tadano calls him diligent, but becomes frustrated. He is sure the boy is hiding something, as it is impossible for trash to use such spells. Suddenly, one lackey looks out the window and becomes terrified. They all notice the red sky and wonder what is happening to the earth. At the training grounds, our boy becomes worried as he looks at the sky. He wonders why he can sense such strong magic out of nowhere, and guesses it might be the calamity. The audience starts panicking, questioning if the disaster is really happening here. Minato is scared because he doesn't understand the cause, but he wonders if it is related to what he sensed in Shinjuku. He remembers the first calamity also started there, and wonders if it is a coincidence. Suddenly, portals open and magical beasts start pouring out. The students become terrified and scream, but the teacher orders them to calm down and leads everyone to safety. Minato wastes no time and shoots multiple magic bullets to kill the monsters. He uses magic to make a loud announcement, ordering everyone to stay calm. He explains that only weak monsters will come out at the beginning of the calamity, so they don't have to worry yet. He assures them it will be fine as long as they use their brains and follow his instructions. Thus, he tells them to run towards the gymnasium in groups, since moving alone is dangerous. He also asks Ruka and the others to evacuate. However, the teacher asks what he is planning to do. Our boy explains he wants to save the people still inside the school building. The teacher doesn't think it is safe to go alone, calling him reckless and trying to stop him. Fortunately, Katsuragi agrees to go with our protagonist, so he doesn't have to handle everything by himself. The teacher remains worried, but Katsuragi reminds him what Minato is truly capable of. Eventually, the teacher has no choice but to give permission, advising them to stay safe. Katsuragi is confident he won't die and tries to confirm this with our boy. Minato simply shrugs it off and tells Yuika he is leaving. She looks concerned and tells him to stay safe. Katsuragi starts running, telling his junior he will take the lead. His insane speed allows him to cover 100 meters in only 10 seconds, so he asks the protagonist if he can keep up. Suddenly, Minato pulls out his magic circles and moves forward with even more incredible speed, shocking the senior. He makes it clear that he is actually the one going first. Katsuragi admits he is fast, but believes speed alone is useless. He decides to watch our protagonist closely to see his hidden power. He wants to save everyone while learning more about Minato. Meanwhile, our boy detects 58 magic users inside the school using his perception skill. Assuming there might be people with no magic, he decides to check the entire building to save them. Soon, a few students are attacked by magical beasts. Minato enters a classroom through a window just in time and uses magic bullets to defeat the monsters effortlessly. The female students are surprised. A monster tries to sneak up on him from behind, but he easily kills it without being phased. Katsuragi finally catches up and asks if he is okay. Minato hopes he can help everyone evacuate and quickly leaves. Katsuragi tries to stop him, thinking it is too dangerous alone, but fails because the protagonist is simply too fast. Katsuragi guesses he might be a burden and admits he isn't being very useful. He still can't believe the boy defeated the beasts so easily and wonders who he really is. Minato runs through the halls looking for more students. Even though he could kill all the monsters at once, he must do it one by one to avoid hurting anyone inside the school. Thus, he has no choice but to chase them and use low-grade magic. He enters another room, defeats more beasts, and the saved students show their gratitude. Since he doesn't have time to personally lead everyone, he sends them towards the gymnasium one by one. Somewhere else, Katsuragi saves a few students and handles a monster while they flee. Suddenly, a student points to the sky. Katsuragi notices students slowly floating down inside magic bubbles. He wonders what the protagonist is doing and questions his identity again. Our boy sent them towards Katsuragi because he believes the guy is good at taking care of others. Suddenly, he senses something. A female student shakes in fear as she is cornered by a huge monster. She cries out for help as loudly as she can. Immediately, a huge magic bullet destroys the beast. She remembers seeing this before when she was saved the last time. Minato appears and asks if she is injured. She realizes he is the one who has saved her twice now. Minato confirms she is right, and she asks if he was also behind what happened during the practice class. Our boy confirms that what she is saying really did happen. The girl starts crying out of relief as she finally gets the chance to show her gratitude, thanking him for saving her life twice. However, he doesn't mind and thinks it is nothing special, which leaves her speechless. Katsuragi finally catches up but looks completely out of breath, asking who he needs to save next. Minato orders the girl to follow and stay with the guy while he leaves. Although she tries to stop him, he ignores her and vanishes. Thus, she becomes worried while Katsuragi simply wonders what he is looking at. Our boy knows many people still need saving, so he has no time to wait for the police. He must hurry and save everyone as soon as possible. Meanwhile, at the Prime Minister's office, the leader finds out the Magic Academy is under attack. His men don't understand why this is happening again, since nothing bad has occurred since the last calamity 50 years ago. They ask him to quickly form a plan, assuming their country might be cursed. He informs them that the Beast Countermeasure Division, the police, and the Magic Nobles have all been contacted, and the GSDF is preparing as well. However, his men remind him they only have self-defense forces and no real mages who can stand against the monsters. He clarifies that he already knows this. It is expected since people have lived peacefully for so long. They used almost all their military budget on international affairs, so they have no choice but to leave the beasts to the police and noble mages. He becomes frustrated that the disaster from 50 years ago is repeating, especially since they don't even have Minato on their side this time. Somewhere else, a girl asks her senior if the calamity is truly happening. He confirms it is definitely the disaster. She becomes anxious, shocked that the 50-year peace was only temporary. The guy, Shugo, from the Metropolitan Police, tells her not to worry since it is their job. Therefore, Sergeant Karen becomes determined to do her best as well. Eventually, news reporters reach the academy by helicopter. One informs the audience that the calamity is occurring at the school, sharing that monsters are pouring out under a red sky. A female reporter reveals the beasts appeared out of nowhere while students take refuge in the gymnasium. The teacher believes they can protect themselves against magical beasts through teamwork. Meanwhile, the world watches the news. A few kids realize the academy is close to home and decide to flee. Outside, people panic and run for their lives while observers realize things look horrible. Our boy notices the huge number of monsters and remembers the second stage is starting soon, meaning stronger creatures will appear. As they progress, things will become even more difficult. He knows there is no point in just defeating them, as they will appear non-stop until the boss monster is killed. Since the boss only reveals itself in the final stage, he needs to keep his cool until then. He starts feeling irritated but continues to save more people. He rescues 20 more people and uses his magic bubbles again to let them float towards safety. However, he is having a hard time finding the remaining students since they have been scattered everywhere. He decides to move on to the next stage. Meanwhile, inside a random classroom, Tadano persistently shoots his fire magic but eventually gives up. He realizes his attacks have zero effect and he is completely out of mana. As a demon soldier stands before them, the whole gang starts sobbing, wondering how they got so unlucky twice. Tadano's lackeys remind him they warned him about this before. The bully becomes frustrated, remembering our boy can defeat a monster in just one hit, and he doesn't understand why he can't do the same. Suddenly, the protagonist appears and tells him it is because he is weak trash. Tadano opens his eyes to see a magic attack effortlessly killing the demon soldier. He is confused, but watches Minato enter the room. As our boy starts leaving, Tadano frustratingly admits he was saved by him a second time. He asks the boy to stop, questioning why he was saved despite being an annoying piece of trash. The protagonist explains there is no real reason, he simply decided to save them because he has the power to do so. Tadano is confused by these words. The bully feels inferior and tries to insult him, calling him a wimp who can't use magic properly. Tadano doesn't understand how he got so powerful, so Minato reveals his secret, stating the real Kusanagi died in a car accident and he was reborn. Tadano finds no logic in this, questioning how someone gets stronger at death's door. He expected to be a great mage but lost to someone he considered trash. Our boy calls him weak because strong people don't oppress others. He points out that Tadano is just consumed by a false sense of superiority. He makes it clear that a weakling like him can't even imagine winning a fight against the protagonist now. Tadano finally accepts this and falls to his knees. He admits he was running from the reality that his powers haven't grown since junior high, taking his frustration out on those weaker than him. In the end, he was saved by the person he looked down on. He admits to his lackeys that they were all saved by Minato and starts crying non-stop. Meanwhile, the protagonist defeats the monsters in the room. A demon soldier enters to kill him and dodges a magic bullet, so the boy unleashes powerful fire magic to defeat it effortlessly. He realizes the demon soldiers are increasing, meaning the boss might appear soon. He assures the terrified students that everything is fine. Somewhere else, Katsuragi becomes angry, wondering why our boy is pushing so much work onto him. He uses fire magic to finish a few beasts while protecting the students. He tells a female student to stop worrying and follow him. The students calm down and cheer for him, but he looks at the army of beasts and wonders how he can protect everyone. Suddenly, Minato appears and offers help. Katsuragi begs him not to sneak up like that. Our boy instructs him to leave once the monsters are gone, but Katsuragi is worried, believing defeating such a huge army is impossible. He suggests changing their route, but the protagonist uses non-attribute magic to kill all the monsters and demon soldiers instantly. Everyone is left speechless, but he reminds Katsuragi to guide the students out. Katsuragi understands and orders everyone to move. The students observe the magic bullets while fleeing, and Katsuragi smiles anxiously, finally realizing how powerful the protagonist truly is. Once they all leave, our boy decides to go back inside the school to search for any remaining students in danger. Meanwhile, the teacher motivates the class to keep pushing back the monsters. Yuika starts feeling tired, and Ruka appears, advising her to rest so she doesn't become a burden. However, Yuika remains determined to keep fighting since there is no time to waste. Katsuragi finally reaches the gymnasium with the rescued group. The teacher praises him and orders him to lead everyone inside. When Katsuragi asks about the situation, Ruka disappointingly admits they are barely holding their ground. Yuika worriedly asks about Minato, but the senior assures her, "Our boy is alive and well." She becomes relieved and smiles. Katsuragi admits that Minato is awesome and possesses incredible strength, believing they can overcome the calamity with him by their side. Yuika wholeheartedly agrees. Suddenly, the ground starts shaking. The students become terrified as the teacher orders an immediate evacuation. A massive army of strong monsters emerges from the smoke, and Katsuragi notices several demon soldiers among them. He admits they stand no chance against such a huge force, and insists they must escape quickly. As the second stage monsters begin chasing the students, Yuika is nearly eaten by a beast, but she is saved just in time. The police have arrived. Shido quickly orders his men to eliminate the beasts, and the officers do everything they can to protect the civilians. The students sigh in relief, thinking they are finally safe. Shido assures them the police are here and orders them to evacuate, but Yuika steps forward, stating the students are ready to fight. When Shido repeats his order, Yuika clarifies that they aren't mere civilians. Ruka joins her, adding that they are trained mages. Shido understands and requests backup, ordering the students to attack from the rear. He is frustrated by their low numbers and wishes the police weren't so under-equipped for this. Nearby, Sanada uses her healing magic to help the injured. The protagonist notices the police have arrived and decides to leave the immediate defense to them. He is surprised they beat the self-defense troops to the scene, thinking it's crazy the country lacks a plan for a national disaster. He views this as a harsh lesson for those who take peace for granted, but continues moving to save the rest of the students. On the news, the reporter announces the police arrival but notes the monsters are multiplying faster than ever. She wonders if they can handle it and hopes the mage nobles will intervene. While the public and even an elderly couple expect the nobles to act since they pay their taxes, the reality is different. Inside a grand mansion, Jin Fuka, the head of a noble household, tells his butler to ignore the calamity. He dismisses it as a small-scale event that the police should handle before simply going to sleep. Back at the school, Shido realizes the situation is spiraling out of control. He asks if they can hold the entrance, but his man confirms there are too many beasts. With the self-defense troops still missing, Shido tries to contact the mage nobles, but he can't get through. He is left fuming at how useless the nobles are being during such a crisis. As the students assist the police, Shido recalls the history of calamities and prays the boss doesn't appear. However, the monster count suddenly escalates as a massive purple beam fills the sky and a demon captain emerges. Everyone panics, as Ruka knows this rare beast can typically only be defeated by mage nobles. Yuika realizes they need magic stronger than level 5 and begins to cry, knowing no one present can cast such spells. The demon captain summons multiple magic circles and unleashes its power. Yuika freezes in terror, but Ruka steps in, using every ounce of her strength to deflect the blow. Since her power isn't enough, she throws herself in front of Yuika as a shield. The attack hits Ruka hard, but she successfully protects her sister. While other students flee, Yuika stays behind, desperately trying to save the injured Ruka. Shido and his men realize they are powerless, and even Katsuragi's full power strike doesn't make the demon budge. The police finally give up, accepting their fate, while Yuika cries out for the protagonist. Suddenly, an irritated voice rings out. Minato arrives, apologizing for being late and feeling bad for making her wait. When Yuika frantically points to her sister, he assures her that Ruka has simply passed out. He quickly heals her wounds, gritting his teeth in frustration at the destruction. He promises Yuika he is about to clean up the mess, and she puts her total faith in him. Immediately, multiple magic circles appear and begin healing all the injured students. Yuika is astonished to see her sister's wounds vanish. Sanada, who was also healing people, is shocked to witness third-level holy magic, admitting even she cannot use it. She finds Shidu, who is out of mana but determined to keep fighting to protect civilians. Sanada tries to stop him, crying that the police have already been defeated and the nobles are nowhere to be found. On the news, the reporter announces the police department's defeat, and the public begins to lose hope, cursing the useless nobles. However, the protagonist approaches the demon captain alone. Sanada wonders if he has a death wish, and Shidu tries to warn him, but our boy ignores them. He is only there to stop the monster. The demon captain terrifyingly expresses its desire to kill, causing some students to nearly piss their pants from the pressure. While Shidu and Sanada are paralyzed by fear, the boy remains unfazed. He launches an attack and tells the monster to shut its mouth. Enraged, the demon captain and its army of monsters strike back with massive magic circles. Minato remembers going all out during the last calamity 50 years ago. However, he knows everyone will die if he does that again. Thus, he decides to hold back his true power to avoid hurting the people around him. Monster's attacks hit him with incredible force, and Shidu initially believes the boy has been killed. However, just as the stray blasts nearly reach the students, our boy deploys his shields and fires a barrage of magic bullets to drive back the army of monsters. Shidu is paralyzed with shock, wondering who this student could possibly be. Nearby, a news reporter realizes a lone student is fighting the horde and orders the pilot to go closer to get a clear shot of his face. Suddenly, the camera lens blows up. Yuika smiles, knowing the protagonist is doing his best to hide his identity so he can finally go all out without distractions. As he persistently rains down magic bullets, the students finally see a glimmer of hope and begin cheering for his victory. When a few magical beasts try to sneak up on the students from behind, Shidu kills them and decides the police will support Minato from the rear, as it is the only thing they can do. Our boy smiles at the sight of the hard-working officers, admitting they aren't as bad as he thought. He keeps up the pressure, but the demon captain screams and summons massive magic circles, preparing to use 6th-level magic. Shidu is horrified, believing they are doomed since such power is on par with the highest nobles. The demon captain unleashes dragon flames, and a massive tornado of fire begins to consume everything. Shidu tries to protect Sanada as the students lose all hope, accepting their death. Sanada prays for a miracle, while Shidu doubts any student, no matter how strong, could survive this. Yuika, however, puts every cell of her being into her faith in the protagonist. Minato watches the massive attack head toward him and notices it feels slow. He realizes the demon captain is overexerting itself to force out 6th-level magic. He admits he can't counter this with mere 2nd-level spells, so despite his desire to stay low profile, he decides to increase his output. He summons 4 magic circles and switches to the water attribute. Yuika cheers as the water takes the shape of a massive serpent. Shidu is amazed, wondering if this is synthesis magic. The fire and water clash violently, and Minato begins to overpower the beast. The demon captain refuses to back down, screaming its hatred for humanity, but Minato simply puts in a little more power. Realizing it is about to die, the monster questions how a mere kid could defeat it. Minato calmly replies that it's due to the captain's lack of training. He's disappointed the fight was easier than expected. Finally, the red sky returns to normal. Minato smiles, relieved the calamity is over now that the boss is gone. The students are in a state of shock, finding it hard to believe he won, but they soon begin celebrating. Even the news crew joins in, feeling safe at last. As Sanada comforts a student, Shidu stares at the boy, calling the feat impossible. He doubts even the nobles could have stopped 6th-level magic and wonders who the boy really is before his legs give out from exhaustion. Minato finds Yuika and tells her it's over. She smiles, thanking him and telling him she always believed in him. However, the peace is short-lived as students suddenly surround him, showering him with praise. Irritated, he asks them to step back. He deeply regrets standing out so much it reminds him too much of the annoying fame of his past life. Yuika notices his annoyance as the official announcement goes out. The calamity at Kamui Magic Academy has been stopped with 0 casualties, though the academy refuses to reveal the identity of the boy who saved them. Later, his classmates show him the news, much to his chagrin. He becomes annoyed, but his peers think it's only natural for him to appear as the mighty savior. Minato gets promoted to S-class, and his old classmates feel bad, realizing they can't talk to him the same way anymore. A few female students ask about the secret behind his strength, assuming he inherited the blood of a great noble mage. Meanwhile, an S-class student observes how annoyed the protagonist looks and doubts such a powerful student really exists. Although his classmates defend him, confirming he defeated the demon captain alone, the S-class student remains unconvinced, thinking the story sounds wrong no matter how you look at it. Minato uses this chance to leave the class, feeling relieved as he steps out. Yuika finds him and asks if he's having a hard time, grinning mischievously. He doesn't want to be teased, but she keeps talking, noting it's natural since he's the hero who protected the whole school. He remembers that Yuika was also promoted to S-class due to her efforts, but she doesn't seem happy. When he asks, she assures him she is, but it's because there's someone else in the S-class. Suddenly, he remembers Ruka and asks if she's doing any better. Yuika answers positively and points out they've been talking more than before. Minato thinks it's a good thing, and Yuika expresses her gratitude again. Out of nowhere, he lightly taps her head, causing her to get embarrassed. He clarifies that he doesn't want her thanking him over and over. Once is enough. At a conference, officials finish a meeting with other countries. They are aware that getting support for the next calamity will be hard as everyone is overwhelmed. One mentions the student who defeated the boss monster, but the others assume it might be a misunderstanding and expect other nations to be skeptical. The leader orders his men to bring back the noble mages to prepare. On the school roof, Ruka and Katsuragi meet Minato and Yuika. They all stare at each other for a moment before Ruka shares her desire to ask the boy something. She wants him to make her his disciple. A few days later, Ruka sits with her sister. She remembers the calamity was stopped by the protagonist, and Yuika confirms he defeated the demon captain using 4-level synthesis magic. Ruka is astonished, knowing even high-level mages cannot use such power. She trusts her sister's words and starts smiling. Yuika wonders why her sister is so trusting, and Ruka recalls that Yuika has always been straightforward, obedient, and hardworking. She finally accepts that her little sister isn't talentless and admits she was the one being stubborn. Yuika realizes her sister was just worried and promises to become strong enough to put her at ease. Ruka realizes how much her sister has grown and praises her, making Yuika smile uncontrollably. Ruka is aware that no student comes near Minato and guesses even her father might be weaker. She knows that if she just goes with the flow, she will only be a high-class mage at best, so she needs his help. Back in the present, Ruka apologizes for her past rudeness and for looking down on them. She admits her request is selfish, but she swallows her pride and asks to be his disciple. Our boy agrees, which surprises her. He confirms his willingness, but she doesn't understand why he's being so nice. He simply calls her a weirdo for making a request and then acting surprised when it's granted. She knows he is right, but still struggles to understand his kindness after her previous behavior. He makes it clear that he has already accepted her apology and forgiven her, so there is nothing more to discuss, leaving her speechless. Katsuragi uses this opportunity to make the same request. The protagonist agrees, noting it isn't difficult to teach two people, which makes the senior happy. Yuika tells her sister that her friend is simply a very kind person, while Katsuragi adds that he is quite mysterious. Later that day, the protagonist is called to a conference room. Shido and Sanada introduce themselves as members of the Beast Countermeasures Division. They both bow in gratitude, admitting that without his help, many civilians and officers would have died. Minato wonders if they need anything else and asks them to stop thanking him, as he believes they have shown enough gratitude already. However, Shido informs him that the investigation has turned up something interesting. Shido shares that he learned the boy's powers appeared after a traffic accident, and many people claim he turned into a completely different person afterward. Minato remains silent as Shido explains how his personality changed and his magic became strong enough to defeat a demon captain. Yuika tries to intervene, but Shido changes the subject, asking if he knows of the Black Magician. Our boy doesn't recognize the name, so Shido shows him a video of a masked figure who protects people at night. Shido smiles, pointing out that the Black Magician and Minato are similar in age, size, and height. He notes that the magician's activities began exactly when our boy was discharged from the hospital. Since using magic in the city without a permit is illegal and has gained public attention, the police must take action. Shido warns that simple expulsion won't be enough, but if he confesses now, they might lessen the punishment. He asks one more time if he is the Black Magician. With zero expression, Minato denies it. Shido looks relieved and smiles, thanking him before leaving. However, as he steps out, Shido expresses surprise at the boy's lack of emotion. He praises his courage to lie so openly and remains convinced that Minato is hiding something. Meanwhile, Sonata already knows he is the Black Magician because their voices are identical. She decides to keep his identity a secret, believing he is a kind person despite the legal implications. While Shido remains determined to unmask the magician, Sonata resolves to help him however she can. After a while, the S-class homeroom teacher officially introduces both Yuika and Minato to their new class. She hopes the other students can get along with them, but the class immediately erupts with questions. They ask Minato if he really defeated the demon captain, while the girls swarm Yuika to ask about life as a noble. The teacher, surprised by their fame, eventually orders everyone to sit so class can begin. Minato feels horrible after answering questions all day, regretting that his identity was revealed. Suddenly, he hears a voice from behind. It's the girl he saved earlier. She asks for a moment of his time, leading him once again to the school rooftop. He wonders if it's some kind of rule that all important talks must happen there. Unknown to him, Yuika follows and hides behind a wall. She had hoped for some private training and feels a twinge of jealousy seeing him alone with another girl. The girl asks if he remembers her, but he honestly says he doesn't until she mentions the calamity. She recalls being saved twice, once during the combat lesson and again during the disaster, and thanks him deeply. Blushing, she calls him cool and confesses that she has fallen in love with him, asking him to be her boyfriend. Yuika is shocked by the confession, but the protagonist remains unfazed. He smiles and thanks her, but politely rejects her, explaining he has something far too important to do to focus on dating. Although she leaves in tears, she appreciates his honesty. Minato then sighs and tells Yuika to stop hiding. She steps out with an awkward smile, wondering how he noticed her. He bluntly tells her that her mana control is horrible and is spilling everywhere, asking if she has some kind of peeping fetish. Embarrassed, Yuika claims she just arrived at the wrong time and asks why he rejected such a pretty girl. He makes it clear he isn't interested in dating anyone, thinking to himself that the age gap is simply too large due to his past life. Hearing this, Yuika feels a strange sense of relief she doesn't quite understand. He tells her to get back to work on her mana control, and she becomes determined to improve until he finally acknowledges her. During the night, the protagonist heads to an area crawling with monsters, wondering if a new calamity is brewing. He suddenly hears a scream and finds a thug using illegal magic to harass a girl. Minato intervenes, catching the man off guard. Without wasting a second, he punches the thug in the stomach and uses magic to knock him unconscious. He realizes the man is just an amateur with terrible close combat skills, likely unused to fighting actual mages. Consequently, the girl he saved thanks him and asks if he is the Black Mage. He becomes annoyed and quickly leaves, ignoring her words. Minato finally realizes that the Black Mage the students and police have been mentioning was him all along. He simply doesn't understand how he became so popular. The next day, while eating with his friends, the protagonist brings up the subject. He remembers Shido talking about an amateur mage who only appears at night and admits he is curious since everyone is discussing it. Katsuragi guesses the popularity comes from the internet, but our boy asks what the internet is with a completely innocent face, wondering if it is similar to a fishing net. Everyone is shocked, finding it hard to believe someone in this era doesn't know about it. They knew he was isolated, but this is worse than they expected. Yuika explains that the internet is a global information network where anyone can share anything, which is why news of the Black Mage spreads instantly. It holds pictures, videos, and practically all knowledge. Minato finally understands, and Katsuragi helps him realize he can access all of this on his smartphone. He asks the boy to open an application, and Minato's face brightens as he smiles uncontrollably while opening a search engine. They all praise him, and he calls the process easy. Ruka then reminds him of his promise to help them train. She wonders when they will begin, and Minato agrees to start after school since they helped him learn to use his phone. He intends to do his best to train them well, though Yuika suspects something difficult is coming. During the session, all three of them quickly become exhausted and fall to the ground. Minato is disappointed, noting they haven't even warmed up yet, and urges them to train as if their lives depend on it. They all get up, assuring him they won't go down easily. He is glad, and orders them to attack with everything they have. As they pull out their magic circles, a terrifying event occurs near Tokyo Tower. A few men notice the sky suddenly turn red, and a massive army of monsters, including multiple demon soldiers and captains, appears out of nowhere. Back at the training ground, the three students fall again. He asks if they have given up, but Ruka and Katsuragi attack at once, determined to continue. He uses a barrier and magic bullets to defeat them effortlessly. While they are hurt, Yuika tries to sneak up from behind, but he easily dodges and defeats her as well. Minato announces a break, and they are all relieved to finally catch their breath. While drinking water, Katsuragi points out that the protagonist is simply too overpowered. Ruka agrees, surprised that even top students can't compare to his strength. Yuika confirms this, believing he is fundamentally different from everyone else. Observing his usual annoyed expression, Minato claims he obtained these mysterious powers after nearly dying in a car accident. He tells them he doesn't know the reason himself and orders them to stop bothering him about it. Ruka wonders if the near-death experience triggered something inside him, but Yuika sees right through his explanation. She is disappointed by how gullible the other two are, but she recognizes there must be a serious reason why he is hiding the truth. Thus, she decides to forget about it for now. Minato feels glad they are so easily fooled and continues the session. They finally end the training session as the sun starts setting. Katsuragi calls it a great session, and our boy notes how tough the senior is. Katsuragi guesses his resilience comes from training alone in the past, but suddenly realizes he is hungry and mentions he must go home to cook. The protagonist is surprised, as he didn't expect the muscle-bound guy to be so domestic. Katsuragi gets a bit angry at the harsh judgment and asks if Minato always eats out. When the boy admits he lives on cup noodles, Katsuragi is horrified. Minato is simply amazed by how convenient the modern world is, but his friend warns him that his body won't survive such unhealthy habits. Feeling a strange sense of concern, Katsuragi drags the resisting protagonist to his apartment so they can eat together. Once they reach the apartment, our boy ends up stuck babysitting while Katsuragi prepares the meal. When the cooking is finished, Katsuragi finds the protagonist entertaining the children with magic bubbles. He jokingly calls Minato an idiot, advising him not to waste magic in a small apartment, though he is secretly impressed by the creative use of power. The little kids comfort Minato after he gets scolded, and Katsuragi is shocked to see how good his friend is with children. The protagonist suddenly remembers the casualties of the past calamity and calls children precious, though Katsuragi just tells him he sounds like an old man. Minato orders him to shut up and enjoys helping the kids read a book. They all sit down to eat, and the protagonist is moved by the quality of the meal. He gets teary-eyed, struggling to remember the last time he had such good food, regretting that he spent so much of his life focused only on fighting. When he asks about Katsuragi's parents, he learns the guy has no father and his mother works late, leaving him to handle the housework, the kids, and a part-time job. Minato is shocked by the heavy routine, but Katsuragi assures him he loves supporting his family. The protagonist realizes his friend is a determined musclehead who thrives on challenges. That night, they all end up sleeping in the same room. Katsuragi apologizes for making him stay over because of the kid's selfishness, but Minato doesn't mind the change of pace. Katsuragi then shows his gratitude, explaining that Ruka has seemed much happier lately thanks to Minato. Our boy wonders if there are romantic feelings involved, but Katsuragi denies it, explaining they are simply misfits who bonded over not fitting in elsewhere. Minato finds the situation surprisingly similar to his own. The next day, Minato and Katsuragi walk to school together. Yuika is frustrated by their lateness, and when she discovers they had a sleepover, she becomes jealous and asks if they trained together. Minato is slightly annoyed by the constant attention but admits to himself that he is enjoying the company. Suddenly, Shido and Sanada appear, requesting a moment of his time. The protagonist is irritated to see them again, but Shido reveals the matter is urgent. Sanada explains that beasts are appearing near Tokyo Tower in a way that suggests a new calamity. They officially request his cooperation, and though he tries to brush it off by claiming he is just a student, Shido insists that a student capable of stopping calamities alone cannot be ignored. Consequently, Shido tries to be straightforward and shares that the situation is far too much for the police to handle, which is why they desperately need his assistance. Minato asks if it is truly okay for them to reveal such sensitive information to a student, but Shido admits they have no choice since they have been completely cornered. He formally requests the protagonist to help them face the monsters. Our boy agrees. Though he was hoping to avoid standing out, the situation keeps getting worse. Shido promises he will receive proper compensation and that he won't even have to contact the academy about it. Yuika and her friends decide they want to help as well. Ruka is confident they can provide support from the rear, and Katsuragi agrees with them. However, Shido thanks them for their effort but refuses to let them come along, stating it is simply not possible. Ruka tries to convince him, but Shido doesn't believe they are ready for a real battle. He asks if any of them come close to Minato's level, leaving them all ashamed and speechless. Shido advises them to head back to the academy while he invites the protagonist to follow him. Minato hopes his friends can someday catch up to him, which leaves them all motivated as they confidently answer that they will. At the police headquarters, our boy ends up involved in a high-level conference. A man explains that hundreds of magical beasts are appearing near Tokyo Tower, and they must act before civilians get hurt. He mentions they have a student on their side who played a huge role in the recent Academy calamity and asks the protagonist to stand up. As he follows instructions, some men talk behind his back, unable to understand why a kid is involved in their business. One calls the story of him defeating a demon captain total crap, which makes Sonata feel embarrassed. Shido speaks up, giving his word that Minato really is the one who stopped the calamity and defeated the boss alone. He believes there is no one on the same power level as our boy, and insists it was a good decision to have him cooperate. He hopes everyone will treat him as a partner rather than a student. Still, the men remain skeptical, viewing him as a mere kid acting high and mighty among professionals. The leader ignores the bickering and orders everyone to immediately take action to kill the monsters. As everyone leaves, Shido finds the boy and apologizes for the rude comments. Minato thinks it is okay and guesses his arrival just put them in a bad mood. Shido is surprised by his maturity, but notices Sonata is sobbing, as she was too terrified to stop the men. Minato assures her not to worry, as he doesn't care what they have to say. She starts smiling and calls him a wonderful person. As they drive toward Tokyo Tower, Minato asks about their current combat power. The policeman answers that they have 80 mages, but only a few are high rank, while the rest are middle rank. Our boy knows middle rank mages use level 2 magic, while high rank mages can use up to level 3. Shido admits it sounds pitiful, especially since the protagonist is the strongest among them, capable of level 4 synthesis magic. Minato asks about the strategy, but Shido disappointingly explains it will be a pure magic battle without much of a plan. He believes they can win against soldiers and beasts, but warns that anything higher than a demon captain will require extreme caution due to their intelligence and power. Shido admits that such a straightforward approach hardly qualifies as a real combat strategy. Kusanagi notes the lack of specialized anti-beast equipment, and the policeman explains that they have nothing effective against magic. They simply wear functional clothes or suits into battle. The protagonist is shocked, remembering a time when such gear was common. He realizes that 50 years of peace have caused a massive decline in magical warfare, finding the shift absurd. As they reach Tokyo Tower, Kusanagi observes that while a full calamity isn't officially underway, the number of monsters is abnormal. The skeptical policemen are horrified to see a demon captain among the horde. Realizing the situation is beyond them, they beg for support from noble mages, but Shido clarifies that backup won't arrive quickly because other organizations are already overwhelmed by illegal magic activities. The officers hesitate, calling it a suicide mission. With no other choice, Shido swallows his pride and asks the protagonist if these monsters can be defeated. Minato answers positively, though the trash talkers still doubt a brat can win. Suddenly, the sky shifts to a deep red. Sonata and the officers realize a calamity is manifesting. Shido broadcasts an emergency message to all stations. A calamity has appeared across Japan. He orders his men to prioritize civilian safety as the beasts begin swarming the urban area. While the police panic, wondering why this is happening again, the protagonist remains unfazed. He recognizes that while calamities are natural, this one seems to be triggered by the beasts themselves, a tactic they must have developed over the last 5 decades. The officers continue to argue. Some want to protect the people, while others are paralyzed by the fear of a losing battle. One officer even mocks the department for becoming so pitiful. Interrupting the bickering, Kusanagi jumps off the building, confidently telling them they can win. He smiles as he summons his magic circles mid-air, landing right in the center of the monster army. As the beasts rush him, the police scream for him to run, but he ignores them. Minato unleashes a 3rd-level spell, Wind Cutter, leaving everyone speechless as the monsters are instantly shredded. However, the more powerful demon soldiers are now becoming active. The monsters launch multiple attacks at our boy, but he remains unscathed behind his shields. Since the barrier proves to be incredibly effective, he decides to cast a massive protective dome over the bystanders, ensuring no civilians are harmed during the chaos. As he slices through the horde, Shido stands astonished. He finds it hard to believe a single person can manipulate several magic attributes simultaneously, guessing that perhaps only Kusanagi possesses such a rare gift. Shido orders his team to move forward and follow the protagonist's lead. Sanada rushes in to provide backup, and although the other policemen are trembling with fear, they find their courage and charge into the battlefield. The protagonist is actually surprised by their tenacity. Suddenly, a demon captain emerges from the crowd. The officers lose hope, knowing that typically only a legendary class mage could stand against such a monstrosity. However, Kusanagi summons the water serpent again, telling the police to handle the smaller beasts while he takes care of the captain. In mere seconds, the demon captain is defeated, leaving the professionals in a state of shock. Shido orders the unit to keep fighting until the boss appears, delegating the demon captains and any high-level threats to Kusanagi. As he fights, the protagonist reflects on the first worldwide calamity from 60 years ago. He remembers how those events became frequent and nearly destroyed civilization. He is determined to prevent history from repeating itself, and is glad he can protect the human race this time. When a demon soldier lunges at Sanada, the protagonist intervenes and kills it instantly. The movement reminds her exactly of that night. He asks if she is okay, and as she tries to get up, he becomes momentarily anxious, wondering if she has realized his secret identity. Sanada, meanwhile, is internally conflicted. She wonders why he became the Black Mage and how he grew so strong, but she doesn't want him to find her questions strange. She blushes, trying to push aside weird thoughts about him being just a student. After he protects her from another hidden danger, he advises her to stay close to him since she lacks combat magic. Following his instructions, she can't help but notice he sounds much more like a seasoned adult than a teenager. Suddenly, an immense pressure washes over the mages. Everyone begins to tremble as a new monster emerges from a pillar of light. Shido identifies it as a subspecies of the demon captain, a much higher and deadlier form. The police realize that even mage nobles might struggle here, making their victory seem impossible. Despite their warnings, Kusanagi steps forward. His calm assurance that he will win stops their trembling. Sanada begins to pray for him, while Shido realizes that since the boy has the strength of a noble, he truly might have a chance. The monster comes face to face with the protagonist. Shido watches with excitement, eager to witness his true peak. The subspecies attacks, launching fire magic so potent that even its level 1 spells cause massive destruction. Yet, our boy isn't scratched. The monster, confused, asks what he is. He simply replies, "I'm a student," and summons his water serpent. In response, the demon captain subspecies unleashes a level 6 fire serpent. The police fall into despair at the sight of such high-level magic. Kusanagi realizes that if he simply dodges or blocks normally, the resulting explosion of flames will engulf his allies. As he contemplates his next move, all the surrounding beasts suddenly begin to gather around them in a strange formation. The police are left in a state of confusion, but as the monsters launch a coordinated assault, Sanada screams a warning. Minato remains completely unfazed, despite the barrage of high-level strikes heading his way. With a precise maneuver, he destroys the demon captain's fire serpent using his water attribute while simultaneously blocking the other beasts with his non-attribute shields. As water pours down over the battlefield, the protagonist feels somewhat underwhelmed, realizing the clash is already effectively over. Shido's jaw drops as he witnesses this unimaginable display of power. Sanada is equally baffled, but Shido explains the technical impossibility of what they just saw. Only a mage noble should be able to handle level 6 magic, yet Kusanagi managed it while also bypassing the buffer time usually required between spells. By executing 2 different types of magic simultaneously with perfect control, he has proven himself stronger than the noble mages. Shido is ecstatic, believing he has finally found the successor to the legendary Ichikami Minato. The protagonist then addresses the demon captain, suggesting they move their fight elsewhere since the current area is too stuffy. The demon captain uses level 1 aerial magic to fly away, followed closely by our boy. The monster assumes they moved, so the human couldn't receive help from the police army, but Minato clarifies with a cold expression that they moved for the opposite reason, so he no longer has to hold back. The demon captain lunges forward with a physical assault, but our boy dodges every strike with ease, blocking a few heavy blows with his arms. Seizing an opening, the monster blasts him with fire magic at point-blank range and slams him into the ground. However, as the smoke clears, Kusanagi emerges without a single scratch. He notes that the monster only resorted to hand-to-hand combat because its magic proved useless against him. Calling the beast's efforts pathetic, he delivers a devastating punch to its head that sends it flying. The demon captain saves itself with a magic circle, initially doubting a human's physical strength, but its entire body soon begins to tremble. Enraged and confused, it demands to know who he is. Minato smiles, revealing that magic isn't his only weapon. He decides to showcase a self-created technique, unleashing a surge of power so intense that Shido and Sanada feel the pressure from a distance. While the monster mocks human physical attacks as useless, Kusanagi begins a relentless assault, his body coated in a shimmering aura of mana. He rains down punches from all directions, forcing the monster into a pathetic defensive struggle. Shido, observing from afar, is stunned to see a human overpowering a literal monster in a fistfight. Minato knows that while normal weapons fail against such beasts, an attack backed by an immense concentration of mana is different. By coating his entire body in magic power, he utilizes the fusion of martial arts and magic craft, slowly breaking the monster apart with his bare hands. He names this new technique magic martial arts. The demon captain refuses to believe a trash human has surpassed its strength, but as it tries to launch a desperate attack, Minato dodges with ease. Without wasting a second, he lands a devastating punch that drills a hole straight through the monster's stomach. Calling the boy a true monster, the demon captain expires, and its subordinates realize their leader has fallen. The sky finally returns to normal, signaling the end of the calamity. The police are flooded with relief, realizing the boy accomplished the impossible. Shido orders his men to mop up the remaining beasts while staying on guard, and Minato descends with a smile, glad to leave the rest to the professionals. He reflects on how long it has been since he last used magic martial arts, noting his execution was a bit rusty. As he lands, the entire police department stands in a row, giving him a formal salute in a display of profound respect for single-handedly stopping the disaster. In the days following this incident, calamities begin appearing across the globe with alarming frequency. While the cooperation between the police and noble mages manages to contain them, public anxiety grows. People begin to resent the government for its lack of preparation and express disappointment in the mages who were supposed to be their shield. Amidst this growing fear, rumors of the Black Mage become a beacon of hope, and the whole world begins to wonder about the identity of this mysterious savior. Back at the academy, Minato feels increasingly irritated as his classmates discover he was the one who stopped the second calamity. They shower him with praise and pester him with questions about the demon captain subspecies. He feels completely bothered by the attention, and Yuika notices his exhausted expression. During class, the teacher discusses the recent events, advising the students to remain prepared at all times since they are mages who could be summoned at any moment. She points to Minato as a prime example of an experienced warrior. Suddenly, Sanada appears at the classroom door with a police escort. After showing her badge to the anxious teacher, she reveals she has the headmaster's permission to speak with Minato. She requests his help once again, much to his surprise. He finds it pathetic how much the police have come to rely on him, and the gawking of his fellow students only adds to his annoyance. He decides to leave with her just to escape the classroom, asking for a situation report. Sanada assures him he will be rewarded and credited for his work. She explains that because beasts are appearing globally and illegal mage organizations have become hyperactive, they are severely lacking in manpower. Minato gives her his contact information, telling her to just call him next time instead of showing up at his school. Sanada feels glad to have his number and instructs him that his next mission is to clear the beasts from Harajuku. While Sanada offers him a ride, the protagonist realizes they will be too late if they go by car. Thus, he activates his magic circles and blasts off from the school grounds alone, leaving the police amazed by his speed. In Harajuku, the sky has already turned red. Two children are terrified as a magical beast corners them. The older brother tries to protect his sibling, but the little one trips while trying to flee. Just as the beast is about to strike, Minato appears and kills it instantly. He praises the children for their bravery, hands back a toy figurine of Ichikami, and smiles to comfort them. After handing the kids over to the police, he runs back into the fray to finish cleaning the area. Consequently, the kids bow in gratitude as he flies away, the younger brother wearing a bright smile of appreciation. However, Kusanagi finds the battle in Harajuku significantly more difficult than his previous fights at the academy or in Shibuya. Because the area is dense with obstacles and fleeing civilians, he cannot recklessly fire magic bullets without risking innocent lives. While he can easily distinguish between humans and beasts, detecting ordinary people with zero magic power is a challenge, meaning the only way to ensure everyone's safety is through a manual, high-speed patrol of the area. The police soon arrive, shifting their focus to combat while leaving the rescue operations to the army and firefighters. A policeman who recognizes Minato from the previous calamity approaches him, and our boy assumes he is part of the reinforcements. When asked about the situation, the officer admits they haven't even saved half the civilians and are struggling to break through to the east side. Minato fires a few precise shots and decides to head east himself. Although the officer warns him about reports of illegal mages in that sector, he quickly realizes there is no point in cautioning the strongest mage he knows. Other officers watch in awe as Minato shreds through the monsters, already beginning to view him as a modern-day savior. Minato eventually encounters a demon captain and eliminates it using a 6th-level burst stream. He is genuinely surprised to find such high-ranking monsters appearing even without an active calamity, a phenomenon that didn't even occur 50 years ago. As the beasts grow stronger and more numerous, he realizes the situation is spiraling toward a point where even he might struggle to manage it alone, concluding that he needs a definitive plan. After saving 2 more civilians and handing them to the firefighters, Minato uses his magic bubbles to evacuate a larger group. Sonata and her team arrive shortly after to help calm the crowd. The police offer their heartfelt thanks once more, crediting him with minimizing the damage, but Minato remains humble, insisting the success belongs to the police and firefighters. The officers, moved by his maturity, formally apologize for their past arrogance. He tells them not to worry about it, leaving them further impressed by his character. Sonata steps forward to thank him as well, admitting she feels guilty for relying so heavily on a student. He reassures her, noting that he agreed to help of his own volition. He points out that the monsters are evolving and increasing, a sentiment Sonata echoes, mentioning that Shido is working tirelessly on a counter-strategy. During their talk, the 2 brothers from earlier approach to thank him again. The younger child asks if he is the great sage, and while the older brother apologizes for the obsession, Minato looks at the Ichikami figurine and softly confirms that he really is the great sage. This interaction triggers a memory of a man from his past life who begged Ichikami for permission to create dolls, keychains, and photo cards in his likeness. At the time, Ikami was skeptical, but the man insisted that people, especially children, needed the great sage's image in their hearts to feel safe for the next 100 years. Watching the children now, Minato realizes the man was right. While a doll can't fight a monster, the hope it provides is essential. Meanwhile, in a shady capital club, Kuroi Otto, the president of the underground guild Black Rebellion, receives a report about the Black Mage. Furious that an independent illegal mage is operating without his permission and interfering with his interests, he orders his terrified subordinates to uncover the mage's identity, using military force if necessary. When the executive manager, Kaguji, asks if they have permission to kill him, Kuroi Otto clarifies his dark intent. They are to torture the Black Mage first, and only then are they allowed to end his life. Kaga becomes excited, his face twisted into an evil expression. Meanwhile, Ruka and Yuika approach Minato, both curious about his true magic power level. Yuika speculates it could be as high as 100,000 or even 500,000, given his feats. With a completely expressionless face, Minato casually answers that it is 9,990,000. The group is initially left speechless, but Yuika and Katsuragi quickly dismiss the number as an impossibility. Ruka reminds him that even the legendary Ikami's power was recorded at around 1 million, which is widely considered the absolute human limit. Minato is privately surprised by this, wondering why the standard is so low. They tease him for not knowing such a basic fact, so he tries to look it up on his phone. However, he quickly gives up with a smile, admitting he still has no idea how to navigate the device. Just then, he receives a call from Shido. The policeman apologizes for the intrusion and asks if Minato's friends are nearby. When the boy confirms they are, Shido asks him to put the phone on speaker. Clueless, Minato relies on Yuika to press the button for him. Shido then makes a major announcement. Because of the escalating calamities and the increasing strength of the monsters, the Metropolitan Police are forming a specialized unit known as the Special Magic Team. He formally asks Minato to be the captain of the squad. Yuika is astonished, believing this is a prestigious title any mage would die for. To her shock, Minato immediately refuses. Yuika grows angry at his dismissal of such an opportunity, but Shido begs them to listen to the full explanation. He admits the police are at their breaking point and can no longer handle the stronger monsters alone. Minato realizes this is a direct result of the low magic levels in the current era. When he asks about the noble mages, Shido reveals that the heads of the Mizuwa, Homer, and Kai families are still stuck in overseas meetings, and Jin Fuka remains unavailable for mysterious reasons. Shido explains that the squad will consist of several officers and select students specifically naming Yuika, Ruka, and Katsuragi as members. He promises to handle all the tedious clerical work and negotiations himself, leaving the team to focus solely on training and combat. In exchange, they will receive significant rewards and school credits that will guarantee their future employment. After Shido practically begs for his cooperation, Minato becomes slightly annoyed but ultimately agrees to lead them. He views it as a chance to train more mages and prevent the world from falling further into ruin. His friends are thrilled, Ruka doesn't want him carrying the burden alone, and Katsuragi is eager for the challenge. Meanwhile, public sentiment turns sour as news channels begin to criticize the Fuka noble family. The public is furious that the nobles were slow to react to the school disaster and are lagging in monster subjugation. Inside his mansion, Jin Fuka scoffs at the reports, calling the journalists dumb for assuming nobles can solve everything. When his butler presents the document regarding the formation of the special magic team, Fuka dismisses it as a stupid move by useless people, though he concedes it might help quiet the angry public for a while. He orders the butler to summon his dumb kid immediately. The butler complies and departs. Meanwhile, at the police department, the protagonist and his friends officially join the special magic team. During their first meeting, Shido begins his briefing, though he admits with an apology that they only have a handful of members. For some reason, they haven't received many applications yet. Shido believes that once the boy produces tangible results, more candidates will flock to the unit. Minato isn't surprised, as he expected some friction given that a literal student is serving as the captain. Shido then hands over temporary mage badges, explaining that while they are technically external collaborators, they are now considered public servants. He notes that these badges are usually reserved for established units, but since the students aren't fully qualified mages yet, the identification is temporary. Formally dropping the student label, Shido addresses him as Captain Kusanagi and leaves the floor to him. Minato smiles, reflecting on how long it has been since he stood as a leader among peers his own age. Stepping to the front, he introduces himself once more as the captain and boldly promises to make every member of his team stronger than even the heads of the noble families. His friends and the officers are stunned by the claim, finding it nearly impossible to believe. Sensing their doubt, Minato decides to provide solid proof. He asks Shido for a magic power measuring device, and once it is brought out, he orders Ruka and Katsuragi to step forward. As they pour their mana into the machine, Minato reminds the room that Ruka previously sat at 10,000 and Katsuragi at 8,000. The room falls silent as the results flash. 30,000 for Ruka and 28,000 for Katsuragi. The policemen are astonished, as these numbers represent the highest grade of the mage class. Minato then asks a visibly anxious Yuika to measure her power. Yuika hesitates, fearing the gap between her and her sister is still too wide despite her grueling training. She worries she is just an ordinary person with no real talent. However, she calms herself, determined not to run away from challenges anymore. Closing her eyes, she pours her magic into the device. Shido and Sonata's jaws drop when they see the screen, 26,000. Shido is reeling, knowing her records previously showed a mere 2,000. He can't fathom a method that increases magic power to such an extent. Minato makes it clear to the room that such growth is possible for anyone with talent and the absolute determination to never give up. Turning to Yuika with a smile, he pats her head and tells her how proud he is of her amazing progress. Ruka watches the interaction happily. When he praises the other two, Ruka tries to act tough, claiming such improvement is only natural for a member of the Mizuha family. Ignoring her deflection, Minato pats her head as well, praising her hard work. Katsuragi is surprised to see his friend acting so boldly without fear, while Yuika becomes anxious, knowing how terrifying her sister can be when her pride is poked. Ruka tells the protagonist she isn't a baby, and he understandingly pulls his hand away. Katsuragi feels a bit shaken by the tension, and Yuika silently thanks God that her sister remained calm. When our boy tries to pat Katsuragi's head next, the tall student becomes flustered and embarrassed. Ruka, meanwhile, is lost in thought. She realizes she has never been treated with such casual affection in her entire life, as even her father never offered her a simple pat on the head. The moment is interrupted when a loud, arrogant man enters the room, demanding to know why he hasn't been properly greeted. Shido, visibly uncomfortable, explains he didn't expect the man to show up today. Shido introduces him to the group as Shu, a mage noble from the Fuka family. He leans in and whispers an apology to Minato, explaining that the special magic team couldn't be established without a noble's approval, forcing him to enlist Shu. Minato recalls that the Fuka family were the ones who ignored the Academy's desperate pleas for help during the last disaster. Shido sighs, noting that the nobles often prioritize their authority and pride over actually answering emergency requests. Shu scoffs at the leading magic unit, mocking the presence of students. When Shido introduces Minato as the hero who defeated the demon captain and the appointed captain of the squad, Shu's face twists in rage. He steps on the protagonist's foot, calling him a piece of trash who doesn't belong to a noble family. He warns Minato not to act cocky just because he's a student leader. Yuika, Ruka, and Katsuragi immediately jump to Minato's defense, ordering Shu to back off and even threatening him. Shu is surprised to recognize the sisters as members of the prestigious Mizuha family, admitting not everyone in the room is trash. Smirking, he declares that he will be the one to lead the unit. When Shido protests that the decision is already finalized, Shu unilaterally issues a challenge. Whoever defeats the boss of the next calamity will earn the right to lead. Before Shido can stop him, the noble walks off, satisfied with his own rules. Minato assures a worried Shido that it's fine. Arguing with an idiot is useless, and he simply intends to win. His friends, however, are fired up and determined to ensure Shu never becomes their captain. Later, on the police department grounds, Minato begins his first training session. He notes that most of the officers possess around 10,000 magic power and decides to start with the fundamentals. He explains that magic power isn't just for launching attacks, it has a passive, defensive utility as well. He calls Katsuragi forward and orders him to strike with everything he has. Katsuragi hesitates but eventually throws a full-force punch, only for it to be stopped dead by an invisible, shimmering wall. Minato explains he is using a magic barrier. He teaches the unit that once a mage possesses a high enough concentration of mana, they can manifest this barrier naturally as an automatic power that protects them without even needing a conscious thought. Katsuragi continues to rain down punches until he is completely exhausted, yet he is unable to land a single blow. The protagonist orders everyone to keep one thing in mind. Increasing magic power capacity is the absolute priority for any mage. He begins pouring his own mana into the policemen one by one, helping them manually sense how to handle their own energy. As the unit dives into training, Minato realizes that while their effort is high, they desperately need anti-beast equipment. Shido's hesitant reaction confirms that acquiring such rare gear is nearly impossible for now, so the boy decides to craft it himself despite having never done so before. Searching for materials, he finds a cheap ring in his drawer that remains in good condition. It's a start, but he needs more. Just as he begins thinking of where to shop, Ruka calls him. She is unusually silent at first, but eventually confesses that she believes only he is worthy of leading the team. Minato smiles, realizing how awkward yet sincere she is, and decides to ask for her help. Since he knows nothing about modern accessories, he invites her to go shopping with him the following day. When she asks if the others are coming, he tells her no, as a large group would be unnecessary. Ruka hesitantly agrees, and they arrange to meet at Harajuku Station at noon. Minato feels relieved, planning to buy rings for the entire squad to turn into magic equipment. Meanwhile, back at the Mizuha household, Yuika calls her sister for dinner. Getting no reply, she enters Ruka's room only to find her sister holding a cute dress and looking uncharacteristically excited. Yuika is speechless, immediately suspecting that her sister is preparing for a date with the protagonist. The next day, Minato arrives at Harajuku Station, unaware that Yuika is spying on him from behind a wall, riddled with guilt but unable to look away. Ruka arrives looking stunning in her dress, drawing the attention of every passerby. Men in the crowd look on with jealousy, assuming Minato is her boyfriend. When Ruka asks what they are looking for, he explains he needs to buy rings, several of them. Ruka is taken aback, assuming he has a massive number of romantic partners. She reminds him that Japan doesn't allow polygamy, but he quickly assures her he's aware of the law. Following her advice to look for inexpensive options if he's buying in bulk, they spend hours jumping from shop to shop. Yuika trails them from a distance, watching their every move. After a long search, Ruka admits it is difficult to find rings that are sturdy and affordable without being overly fancy. Minato grows a bit annoyed. Every time they find a suitable design, it's either too fragile or far too expensive. Yuika watches them from a distance while sipping her juice, her jealousy growing as she notices how close they are standing. A shop manager approaches with a bright smile, offering suggestions for a gift for his girlfriend. Minato tries to clarify the situation, but Ruka cuts him off with a frigid expression, bluntly stating she is not his girlfriend. The manager, flustered and embarrassed, quickly retreats. Ruka feels a sting of regret for her coldness, while Minato simply feels exhausted by the social friction. They finally take a seat, and Minato admits he is worn out from navigating the crowded mall. He begins to doubt his own criteria for the rings, wondering if he's being too picky. Noticing the look on Ruka's face, she confesses that she doesn't know how to show affection and is fully aware that he likely views her personality as trash. She admits she hasn't even mastered interacting with her own little sister and suggests that he would have been better off shopping with Yuika instead. However, Minato surprises her by calling her wrong. He points out that he noticed how much research she did before coming, scouting multiple stores and carefully considering his needs despite it being his problem. He smiles, assuring her that she has been a massive help. Ruka begins to blush, her mood instantly lifting. From her hiding spot, Yuika witnesses this rare, soft expression on her sister's face and feels a wave of dejection. Realizing she can't watch anymore, Yuika decides to head home. A few hours later, Minato happily exits the mall, having finally secured 5 suitable rings. Ruka is still slightly confused, assuming he bought them for romantic partners, and telling him they will surely be happy since he took so much time to choose. He clarifies that they are simply for the unit's equipment, which finally clears up her misunderstanding. He thanks her properly for her help, and though she says it's fine, she is clearly pleased. To repay her, he asks for her hand. Shyly, she complies, and he slides the first special ring he crafted himself onto her finger. He asks her to take good care of it with a warm smile. Overwhelmed, Ruka abruptly walks away before he can explain the technical details of the anti-mon equipment. Once she is a safe distance away, she stops and stares at the ring, clutching her hand to her chest and blushing uncontrollably. The next day, Minato announces he is handing out the new equipment. Sanada and the officers put the rings on and immediately feel a magical reaction. He explains that these are anti-mon equipment imbued with wind magic, allowing them to produce level 1 wind attacks by channeling their own power. Shido is staggered, unable to believe that Minato crafted these himself, as such skilled craftsmen are nearly extinct in this era. He admits that the boy manages to amaze him every single time. Yuika notices that her sister doesn't step forward to take a ring. Looking closer, she sees Ruka is already wearing a ring she's never seen before. Assuming it was a gift from their date, Yuika becomes incredibly anxious, wondering exactly what happened after she left the mall. Meanwhile, Minato brings up their next problem, transportation. He calls cars unreliable and too slow for high-stakes missions, a point Shido sadly agrees with, noting they are often too late to the scene. Minato demonstrates how to use the wind spell Aerial through the anti-mon equipment. He believes this will significantly reduce their travel time. While the rings aren't powerful enough for offensive strikes, they provide enough lift and acceleration for flight. He guides the team, telling them to visualize jumping into the sky. Soon, Sanada, Shido, and Yuika are all airborne. Minato praises Yuika for her quick success, but she modestly attributes it to her long hours of mana manipulation training. As she stares at him, Yuika is suddenly overcome with guilt for spying on him and her sister previously. Noticing her conflicted expression, Minato approaches her with a question. He asks if she knows about the legendary Ichikami. Her eyes light up as she confirms he is the person she admires most. When he asks about Ikami's history, she explains that he had a power level of around 1 million and died fighting a demon god during the Great Calamity. She proudly adds that her ancestors in the Mizuha family played a massive role in rebuilding society from zero, as almost all magical data and great mages were lost in that era. Minato is deeply troubled by this. He clearly remembers leaving behind numerous books and hidden archives to preserve magical knowledge for the future. He wonders why modern magic is so full of errors and why the general power level has plummeted so drastically. He suspects someone might be intentionally suppressing or distorting the information he left behind. Yuika notices him zoning out and kindly tells him not to hesitate to ask for her help if he is worried. He thanks her, calling her a big help, but internally resolves to keep his identity as Ikami and the Black Mage a secret to protect her from potential danger. He knows that discovering he is the legendary hero might literally cause her to lose consciousness. Yuika, misinterpreting his silence as a lack of trust in her current strength, becomes even more determined to become a reliable partner. 1 week later, the results of their intense training are clear. Minato orders everyone to display their progress. Sanada successfully casts the level 2 offensive spell Holy Crest, a huge step forward for someone who previously lacked combat magic. Shido has reached level 3, while Katsuragi and the Mizuha sisters have mastered level 4 magic. Minato is particularly impressed by the combat compatibility between Ruka and Yuika. Their combined level 4 spells absolutely devastate the training ground. For Yuika, the moment is bittersweet, but she smiles as she realizes she has finally earned her sister's genuine respect. Despite the praise, Minato warns them not to become lazy just because their levels increased. To prove a point, he orders Ruka to hit him with a level 4 spell. She complies, and to everyone's shock, Minato neutralizes her massive attack using only level 1 earth magic. He explains that magic levels only dictate the amount of power that can be infused into a spell. They do not automatically make a spell stronger in a clash. True mastery, he teaches, lies in how the magic is used. Consequently, Kusanagi emphasizes that if a mage infuses maximum magic power into a level 1 spell, it can easily overcome a level 4 attack. He reminds the squad that elemental attributes are crucial, noting, for example, that water is always weak to earth and warns them never to get trapped by the rigid concept of levels. To truly grow stronger, they must master the spells they have and understand the flow of their own power. He adds that they must never forget their partners, as combined magic is far more potent than any solo effort. The team's motivation is briefly interrupted by Shu, who appears only to mock their efforts. When Shido suggests he actually help clear some monsters, the noble refuses, claiming it is too much work, and wickedly leaving the burden to the police. However, the air shifts as Yuika notices the sky turning a familiar, ominous red. Realizing a calamity is starting, Shu gets fired up. He reminds everyone of his challenge. The first squad to defeat the boss earns the right to lead the unit. Shu and his men arrogantly activate their wind equipment and blast off, calling the others losers. While Yuika calls the head start unfair, Kusanagi remains calm and orders his team to put on their headsets and prepare. As the special magic team takes flight, he reminds them that this is their first real mission as a squad and to remain cautious. High above the roads, Shu mocks a slow-moving car and laughs at how fast he is. Katsuragi and Yuika are genuinely surprised that someone with such a large frame can move so quickly, but Kusanagi recognizes that the noble's team actually has decent proficiency with wind magic. Though he knows he could easily overtake them alone, he refuses to rush and abandon the purpose of a team effort, especially since the civilians below still appear safe. Shu continues to mock them through the air, but his focus shifts when he spots a group of monsters. He and his men begin firing wind magic indiscriminately. When terrified civilians beg for help, the noble completely ignores them, focused only on his kill count. Just as a group of people is about to be caught in the crossfire of his reckless wind spells, Kusanagi intercedes, shielding the civilians with a barrier. With a cold, terrifying expression, Minato asks Shu exactly what he thinks he's doing. The pressure he exerts is so intense that the noble and his men almost piss their pants, paralyzed and unable to move even an arm. As the rest of Kusanagi's squad arrives to secure the civilians, Yuika furiously berates Shu for dragging ordinary people into the fight. Once the pressure lifts and Shu can move again, he dismisses the experience as a fluke, arrogantly blaming the civilians for getting in the way of a mage noble. He and his buddies fly off again, determined to find and defeat the boss, while leaving the boring rescue work to the protagonist. Kusanagi watches them go. He knows he could destroy the fatso in seconds, but he realizes this challenge is actually a perfect opportunity to test his team's growth under pressure. Kusanagi orders his squad to focus on defeating the monsters, while he takes full responsibility for protecting the citizens. Shido wonders if the protagonist is truly confident about such a difficult task, but Minato reassures him, pointing out that this is exactly what the leader of a special unit must do. Moved by his resolve, Yuika motivates the group to stop relying solely on him and start proving their own worth. Following his command to move forward and win, the team takes flight, engaging the horde with their new wind magic. Yuika is personally astonished by her growth. Where she once trembled in fear, she now uses level 3 spells to effortlessly cut through demon soldiers. Meanwhile, Minato senses the chaotic mixture of human and monster mana. Although the situation is complex, he remains calm, knowing he can handle it because he is Kusanagi. He maneuvers through the urban battlefield, prioritizing every trapped civilian he finds. Nearby, Shu and his men continue their reckless assault, completely ignoring the people in danger. Ruka and the others maintain their formation, determined not to let the noble's team claim victory. Suddenly, a powerful presence emerges, a high-level demon. In his delusion, the fatty sees this as his chance to win the challenge and launches a level 4 wind attack. His men try to warn him that such a spell won't scratch a demon, but Shu ignores them, fueled by his misplaced noble pride. The demon responds with level 4 fire magic, instantly incinerating Shu's pathetic attack. Terrified, the noble and his lackeys turn tail and run, leaving several civilians to be caught in the fire. Just as the flames are about to reach them, Kusanagi appears and uses earth magic to neutralize the heat, while his squad arrives to shield the survivors. Minato smiles, praising his team for their quick reaction. Yuika then approaches the cowering Shu. With a cold expression, she demands to know why he abandoned the citizens to save himself. He arrogantly retorts that it's their fault for being slow, and that commoners aren't worth the life of a noble. Enraged by his lack of humanity, Yuika loses control and slaps him so hard he goes flying. She calls him a prideless coward, unworthy of his status. As Shu whines about being struck, Yuika orders the team to ignore his pathetic behavior and focus on the remaining monsters. Kusanagi watches them, noting that they've become quite rowdy in front of the enemy, but he's glad they regained their focus quickly. He continues his search for survivors while staying alert for the boss's arrival. Seeing the demon's true power, Shu and his lackeys hide behind a wall, finally admitting they can't win. However, the fatty comes up with a treacherous plan. He will wait for Kusanagi's squad to wear the monster down, then jump in at the last second to steal all the credit. While the noble waits in the shadows, Shido and the rest of the squad stand face to face with the towering demon. Yuika can feel the immense pressure radiating from the creature. Though she doubts they can win a direct confrontation, she steels her resolve, determined to give everything she has to support her team. The whole squad begins attacking the demon persistently, but as the smoke clears, the monster remains completely unscathed. Yuika realizes their strikes haven't even left a scratch. Ruka suggests they must use level 4 magic or perfectly infused lower-level spells to break through. The demon responds by summoning massive fire attacks from its magic circles, and as the team struggles to dodge, Yuika admits the beast is twice as strong as her own magic. They have no chance like this. Noticing his squad is stuck, Kusanagi intervenes over the comms with advice. He orders them to work together in the truest sense, hinting that the Mizuha sisters hold the key to victory. Yuika is confused and asks for clarification, but Minato tells her to figure it out herself before cutting the call to continue saving civilians. Ruka believes his words hold a deep meaning, and Yuika agrees, knowing he has always led them toward success. Yuika suddenly takes charge, noting that the demon takes a long time to cast its spells. She instructs Shido and the police to handle the east side while they attack from the west, using her signals to help everyone dodge the monster's fire. Kusanagi observes this while rescuing survivors. He expected Ruka or Katsuragi to lead, but he's impressed by Yuika's ability to read people and direct the flow of battle. However, Yuika begins to feel exhausted and realizes their current magic levels still won't cut it. She reflects on Kusanagi's words and suddenly understands she misunderstood his teamwork hint. She doubts such a ridiculous method will work, but having left common sense behind long ago, she decides to risk everything. Yuika requests that everyone lend her their magic power for one final strike. As the squad prepares, Shido questions if this is even possible, but they realize they have no other choice. Katsuragi, Sonata, and Ruka put their total faith in Yuika. The demon raises its arm, unleashing a level 5 blazing pillar. As the massive wave of fire falls toward them, Shu and his men mock the squad as losers, but they are stunned to see the team moving forward instead of retreating. Sonata unleashes her level 3 sacred healing magic to constantly restore the squad members as they push through the heat. Kusanagi calls it a brilliant plan, since a level 5 spell is nearly impossible to dodge in this area. Using Sonata as a healer tank to negate the damage is a genius move. Standing together, Yuika and Ruka combine their mana and release a massive water spell. Kusanagi smiles, glad they finally understood. If they can't win individually, they must merge their powers. He calls the resulting level 6 spell a grand magic burst stream, which completely overwhelms the demon in a titanic wave. As the smoke clears, Shido is shocked that the sisters managed a level 6 feat. However, Katsuragi points out that the demon is still barely clinging to its pathetic life. Seeing an opening, Shu and his men rush forward to deliver the final blow and steal the credit for the victory. Before they can reach the beast, Kusanagi intervenes with his drain tentacles, ensnaring the noble. Shu is left confused and terrified as he feels all of his mana being rapidly depleted. Consequently, Shu loses all his strength instantly as Kusanagi pulls back his drain tentacles, looking thoroughly annoyed by the noble's pathetic behavior. The demon finally fades away into dust, and the sky returns to its natural color, signaling the official end of the calamity. The whole squad is overcome with relief, though the victory comes at a high price. Both Ruka and Yuika lose consciousness and collapse. Katsuragi rushes to their side, realizing they are completely drained from the massive mana output required for their combined attack. Before slipping into a deep sleep, the sisters share a brief, weary smile, confirming to each other that they actually won. Kusanagi approaches his team with a rare, genuine smile. He praises their efforts, officially labeling this as their first successful mission and expressing how proud he is that they didn't disappoint him. He is particularly shocked by Yuika's growth. He realized she didn't even know the term grand magic, yet she successfully executed the complex technique based entirely on a gut feeling and his vague hint. He admits to himself that he underestimated her. Yuika is far more special and intuitive than he initially believed. Once they return, Kusanagi gathers the team around a television to watch a live press conference. Shido stands before a swarm of reporters announcing the formation of the Special Magic Team, SMT, to combat the rising tide of monsters. When a reporter skeptically questions why a student was appointed as the leader, Shido defends him passionately. He explains that the boy possesses abilities surpassing even the noble mages, whom he bluntly calls useless for failing to protect the citizens. Shido declares the protagonist a savior sent to protect this era, leaving Kusanagi feeling incredibly embarrassed by the grandiosity of the praise. The broadcast causes an immediate stir among government officials. While many admit the Fuka clan has a horrible reputation for ignoring their duties, they worry that establishing a squad behind the nobles' backs will cause a political disaster. The head of police tries to maintain a neutral stance, insisting the SMT wasn't created to undermine the nobility. Suddenly, the doors to the conference room burst open. The ugly fatty, Shu, stumbles in with his lackeys. He calls the current police leadership incompetent and loudly proclaims that as a magic noble, he is the only one who deserves to be the true leader of the special unit. Shu bursts into the press conference, loudly condemning the officials for their rudeness in ignoring him. His minions quickly back his claims, while Shido stands baffled by the intrusion. Despite having clearly lost the challenge, Shu arrogantly acts as if no such agreement ever existed, declaring his own words as the magic noble absolute. However, the tide quickly turns. A reporter steps forward and confronts him with reports that he failed to protect a single civilian during the calamity, instead recklessly endangering innocent bystanders. Though Shu tries to deny it, the media collective reveals they have undeniable proof of his cowardice. The government officials are appalled, stating that prioritizing the self over citizens is unacceptable. Terrified and cornered, Shu loses his cool, screaming at the peasants to shut up and blaming the civilians for getting in his way. Shido seizes this moment to point out the obvious corruption within the noble ranks. He passionately argues that the nation needs a leader like Kusanagi, a true hero with zero selfish intentions. While the reporters rally behind Shido's vision, the head of the police looks on with concern at the political fallout. Shu eventually storms out, vowing a petty revenge against everyone who humiliated him. Watching the chaos from the safety of their room, Kusanagi smiles awkwardly, surprised that Shido didn't hold back his punches. Yuika then shows him the viral videos of the calamity spreading across the internet. Kusanagi is genuinely terrified by how fast information travels in this era, but his fear turns to frustration when Yuika reveals that all their faces were clearly caught on camera. His dream of a quiet, low-profile life is officially dead. He knows his identity is now public, and things are about to get much more complicated. A few days later, Minato is stunned to see a massive crowd gathering at the meeting room. Shido explains with an anxious smile that the higher-ups are now granting approvals instantly, and the number of volunteers has skyrocketed following the viral videos and the press conference. Shido apologizes for overdoing it, but Yuika grabs Minato's arm, teasingly telling him he needs to get used to the spotlight because the world can't look away from someone as special as him. He simply sighs, calling the fame troublesome. The mood shifts to a dark, mysterious location at night. A red-haired man is tied to a chair, a blade pressed against his throat. A member of the Black Rebellion demands everything he knows about the Black Mage. The victim, trembling and bleeding from a fresh slash, begs for his life. He desperately recalls a final piece of information. The police have been frequently visiting the Magic Academy to investigate the Black Mage, leading to a persistent rumor that the legendary figure is actually a student. Consequently, the kidnapper finds the victim's lack of further information disappointing. Though the red-haired man begs for his release, the mysterious four-eyed man kills him instead, coldly remarking that he is now free from life's grasp. As blood splashes onto him, the killer grows irritated by the filth but remains wickedly excited. He relishes the thought of a young student being the Black Mage, already imagining the sound of the boy's screams. Meanwhile, Kusanagi lands in Shinjuku, wearing his mask to maintain his secret identity. After taking down a monster, he notices children nearby filming the carcass. Frustrated, they missed the Black Mage in action. He realizes his hopes for the hype to die down were naive. Even in residential areas, people and police are constantly searching for him. While he is glad the authorities are finally handling disasters better than when he first reincarnated, he feels the public's obsession with his alter ego is becoming a burden. His attention shifts to a nearby alley where thugs are extorting a helpless man for 10 million yen, an impossible interest on a 200k loan. Just as they prepare to use magic to harvest the man's organs, Kusanagi intervenes, shielding the victim and allowing him to escape. The thugs mock him for playing the hero, but they quickly regret it after Kusanagi delivers a painful lesson. Beaten and terrified, they recognize him as the Black Mage and begin rambling about rumors that underground syndicates are hunting him. Kusanagi, intrigued, pressures them for information about these organizations. Terrified, the thugs reveal the existence of the Black Rebellion, a massive underground syndicate of mages involved in everything from money laundering to controlling the Yakuza and Mafia. They explain that the organization's influence reaches deep into politics and the media, granting them total immunity. They even mention a local branch nearby where they had hoped to find work. After finishing with the thugs, Kusanagi reflects on Sanada's reports about the rise in illegal activity. He concludes that the Black Rebellion is the root cause. Feeling a spark of excitement, he decides on a new double-life strategy. He will handle calamities and monsters as a student in the SMT, but he will systematically dismantle the criminal underworld as the Black Mage. He heads toward the Kabukicho branch, the nearest stronghold of the syndicate. Though he finds the lively, sketchy nature of the modern entertainment district annoying, he begins scanning for magic signatures. Realizing it's harder to pinpoint criminals among so many humans compared to monsters, he decides to start small. He begins his cleanup by cornering two individuals engaged in a drug deal in a dark alleyway. The thugs notice him and prepare to strike, but the protagonist beats the crap out of them instantly. He interrogates them for information, and while they have little to offer, he reports their location to the police before moving on. After neutralizing a few more men, he finally learns that the organization has a gathering point known as Western. The final thug begs for mercy, swearing he's told the truth, but Kusanagi knocks him out regardless and heads toward the club, hoping the lead is solid. At the Western bar, a beautiful woman with purple hair takes a seat and slides cash to the bartender, seeking information on the Black Rebellion's hideout. The bartender's expression shifts. He tells her she's asking the wrong question and should instead worry about what's going to happen to her. Realizing it's a trap, she turns to see a group of thugs closing in. They mock her for sniffing around, and though she attempts a desperate dash for the exit, a blast of fire magic strikes her from behind. Injured and falling, she feels a wave of hopelessness, silently apologizing to her brother for her failure as the thugs move in to take advantage of her. Suddenly, the protagonist enters the bar, catching everyone off guard. He completely ignores the tension and walks straight to the bartender, asking if the Black Rebellion members are present. When a thug tries to sucker punch him while hurling insults, our boy counters with a strike that sends the man flying across the room and through a wall. The purple-haired woman is left speechless. She knows no normal human possesses such raw power and wonders if he used magic, despite seeing no signs of enchantment. Kusanagi is relieved the intel was accurate, identifying the Western Club as a nest for low-level mage thugs. He openly insults them, calling them pathetic scum for ganging up on a lone woman. Though terrified, the thugs try to regain their composure, believing their numbers will grant them victory in the cramped indoor space. The girl shouts for him to run, fearing he can't cast strong spells without hitting her or the building, but the protagonist simply loses his patience. Moving with blinding speed that the woman's eyes can't even follow, he dodges every firebolt and begins throwing hands. He methodically beats the crap out of them one by one, knocking out the entire group in mere seconds. One sobbing thug demands to know who or what he is. With a cold finality, our boy answers that he is the Black Mage, the man destined to destroy the Black Rebellion. He knocks out the last standing man and approaches the girl. Still dazed by the speed of his victory, she looks up and is surprised to see he appears to be a high school student with incredibly striking eyes. Kusanagi, showing a touch of concern, asks if she's okay, relieved to find she hasn't sustained any serious injuries. Consequently, the girl confirms with a confused expression that she is okay. Minato immediately turns his attention to the bartender cowering behind the counter, demanding intel on the Black Rebellion. When the man refuses out of sheer terror of the syndicate's reach, our boy shatters the heavy table with a single punch, making it clear this is his final warning. Terrified for his life, the bartender spills everything. The organization is headquartered in Tokyo with branches spanning far beyond Kabukicho. He warns that the local branch leader is a monstrous mage who practically controls the Japanese underworld from the shadows. However, the man swears he doesn't know the exact hideout, leaving Kusanagi disappointed at being back to square zero. As the protagonist prepares to leave to hunt more illegal mages, the purple-haired woman stops him. She offers her profound gratitude, knowing the horrific fate that awaited her. Minato bluntly tells her it was her own fault for being so reckless, admitting he is only harsh on adults. When she asks what he plans to do once he finds the gang, he answers with a cold, unwavering resolve, "I will destroy it." Shocked by his ambition and recognizing his overwhelming power, the woman makes a strategic proposal. She introduces herself as Leona, a detective with deep connections and access to high-level information, but lacking the physical strength to act on it. She suggests a partnership, her intel, in exchange for his muscle. Minato contemplates the offer. While he's wary of trusting a stranger, he realizes he's in dire need of a guide through the underworld. He decides he can always ghost her if things go south, so he shakes her hand, sealing the deal. Leona finds the name Black Mage too clunky, so after getting his permission, she decides to call him Chrono. He accepts the nickname and asks why she was sniffing around such a dangerous place. She admits her goal was to find the hideout because no one else dares to stand up to the Black Rebellion. She explains that rogue mages are currently running wild in Kabuki-cho without consequence because the police are stretched thin by the constant calamities. Minato realizes this aligns perfectly with what Sanada told him earlier. Leona's voice falters as she reveals her personal stake in the fight. Her younger brother was brutally attacked by these rogue mages, and she is determined to see justice served, no matter the cost. She explains that since their parents passed away, she has been the sole provider for her brother. She worked tirelessly to give him a good life, even if it meant he was often lonely, yet her brother never once complained. Her expression darkens as she recalls the day burglars broke into their home. Because her brother saw their faces, they tried to kill him. Minato asks if he survived, and she reveals he has been in a coma ever since. He knows that in this era, even sacred magic is often insufficient to wake someone from such a state. Leona is consumed by frustration, noting her brother is only 9 and deserved a normal life. She discovered the attackers were Black Rebellion lackeys, and, though she arrested those individuals, she won't be satisfied until the entire syndicate is erased. Minato asks if her only motive is vengeance, but she firmly denies it. She wants to change the world so no one else suffers like her. She believes that while she is weak, he has the power to stand against the gang. Kusanagi suspects she might be sharing this story to ensure his loyalty, but he smiles, finding her desperation and grit admirable. He warns her not to be a burden, but she assures him her information network is vast. She has already flagged several potential hideouts, though some might belong to the Yakuza or Mafia. When he demands the locations to pay them a visit, she warns him of the extreme danger. He simply brushes it off, reminding her he is the legendary Black Mage. Leona insists on coming along, even if it costs her life. Minato questions what would happen to her brother then, but she grimly suggests the insurance money would provide for him. He calls such thinking worthless, sternly advising her that family is more important than money. Leona snaps back, crying as she explains he can't understand the helplessness of the weak being oppressed by scum, despite living a good life. Moved by her tears, Minato demands the locations again, promising the gang will pay for their crimes. This finally cheers her up. She gives him the intel but worries about traveling on foot. He tells her not to worry, grabs her from behind, and tells her to hold on tight, causing her to blush uncontrollably. Seconds later, they arrive at a building crawling with gang members. A thug looks toward the window just as it shatters, and Kusanagi lands inside with Leona in his arms. He instantly kicks a nearby thug, knocking him out and shocking the room. As Leona tries to catch her breath after the terrifying flight, the gang members scramble for their weapons. Minato remains unfazed, noting that the Yakuza haven't changed much since his previous life. The boss, clutching a cigar, demands to know who he is. "I am the Black Mage," he answers. Enraged, the boss orders a total assault. As a thug lunges at him with a sword, our boy stands fearless, advising Leona to stay close to him. The thug is left in shock as his sword is sliced clean in half. He can't fathom what just happened, and as his comrades begin opening fire from behind, Kusanagi deploys a magic barrier that deflects the bullets with ease. The criminals realize their weapons are utterly useless against him and begin calling him a monster, but he ignores their cries and approaches the leader. He demands to know if they have any ties to the Black Rebellion, but the boss only responds with insults and threats, warning him not to underestimate the Yakuza. Leona points out that he shouldn't expect cooperation from such stubborn people. Though she is privately amazed, they remain unharmed after such a barrage. Sensing no magical energy, Kusanagi concludes they aren't part of the syndicate and decides to clean up the mess. Before the boss can even finish his next threat, our boy lands a devastating kick that sends the thugs flying. The Yakuza finally surrender, and Leona is stunned by how quickly it ended. Annoyed that they learn nothing, Kusanagi grabs her and jumps out the window again, ignoring her terrified screams as they head to the next lead. They make several more grand entries through windows, with Kusanagi defeating entire gangs in seconds and forcing them to beg for mercy. Finally, as they stand outside another building, Leona frustratingly begs him to stop crashing through glass and suggests they actually try using the door for once. He agrees to follow the rules this time and knocks on the door of the next location. A bald man answers and tells them to get lost, but Kusanagi loses his patience and kicks the door open anyway. As the gang members prepare to raid him, a man named Ushiro steps forward and identifies himself as the boss. He orders his men to stand down, sensing that they are no match for the boy. Ushiro confirms he has zero connections to a pathetic organization like the Black Rebellion, as honor is the foundation of his clan. He agrees to reveal the hideout location on the condition that Kusanagi leaves immediately after. Now, Leona and our boy sit face to face with Ushiro, surrounded by his men, as the air fills with tension. Ushiro introduces himself once more, prompting the protagonist to reveal his alias as Chrono, while Leona follows suit. The boss points to a map, indicating the general area of the Black Rebellion's hideout, though he admits he lacks further specifics. After cross-referencing this with Leona's previous suggestions, Kusanagi realizes they were on the right track all along and finally acknowledges her reliability. When questioned about betraying his own industry by sharing this info, Ushiro clarifies that his clan isn't pathetic enough to harm respectable people, though he dryly notes Kusanagi hardly looked respectable while raiding Yakuza offices. Amazed to find a man of such principles in this era, our boy prepares to leave. Ushiro warns him that the syndicate has powerful political backing, but Kusanagi simply grabs Leona and assures the old man he's faced far worse before flying away. In a nearby warehouse, a group of criminals meets to finalize a deal for a special weapon. As the red-haired leader and a man in a black suit exchange cash and mocks Japan's kindness toward criminals, Kusanagi makes another grand entrance through the window. Using magic perception, he confirms that both the Black Rebellion and the Mafia presence are composed of mages. While Leona hides to record the encounter, the red-haired man demands his identity. Tired of the repetition, our boy declares himself the Black Mage destined to destroy them. The villains burst into laughter, doubting a lone kid can do anything, until a massive fire attack blasts several of them away. Enraged, the thugs unleash a barrage of magic and bullets, but Kusanagi effortlessly deflects everything with his barrier. He realizes they are limited to level 2 magic to avoid collapsing the warehouse, making their efforts futile. As the criminals grow desperate, wondering why their attacks have no effect, the man in the suit remembers the special weapon they just purchased. Their confidence returns as they don gas masks and pull out a canister. Sensing the danger, Kusanagi immediately orders Leona to get out. A gas bomb is thrown, and though our boy stops it midair with his magic, it detonates, releasing a thick cloud of poisonous gas. The thugs smirk, convinced that no matter his strength, he cannot survive such a lethal toxin. They believe the battle is finished and feel relieved, thinking the Black Mage has finally dropped dead. They start moving forward, curious to see what his lifeless face looks like. However, as the smoke finally clears, they are both struck with surprise when the boy emerges once again, completely unscathed. The gang members find it impossible to believe and demand to know how he is still alive. He explains that while no magic could save him from poisonous gas itself, it is just gas in the end, so he simply used his wind magic to circulate the fresh air around him. He calls their attempt stupid and informs them that a powerful mage like himself won't fall so easily. The men become terrified and try calling for backup, but no one picks up their calls. Kusanagi tells them it is useless because he has already taken care of it. He reveals that he has already destroyed all of their other hideouts, leaving them as the only ones left. Kusanagi orders them to get ready and proceeds to beat the living crap out of them. He feels satisfied after completely destroying the Black Rebellion's Kabukicho branch, so he decides to go look for Leona. Our boy suddenly notices someone lurking behind him. A man emerges from the shadows using Leona as his hostage. He admits he is surprised that the protagonist took care of everyone all by himself. He calls it impressive and smiles wickedly, sharing his hope to negotiate with the Black Mage. As soon as Minato, also known as the Black Mage, finishes taking down the Black Rebellion members and neutralizing the poison gas, he rushes toward the warehouse exit to check on Leona, only to find her held by this evil mage. The perpetrator demands that Minato negotiate for her release. Minato quickly assesses the situation, noting that the distance between them is too great for him to reach her in time, even with combat magic, unless he can find a gap. Just as he prepares to activate a first-level spell to force the attacker to drop his knife, the man notices and warns him not to try anything reckless if he values Leona's life. Surprised that his opponent can perceive his magic, Minato acknowledges him as a worthy adversary and even praises his skill. From what he observes, Minato suspects that the man is suppressing his full power, but he estimates his magic level to be around 40,000, marking him as a high-level mage. Meanwhile, Leona tries to apologize to Minato, whom she calls Chrono, but he reassures her that he will save her. Growing irritated at being ignored, the assailant threatens to kill Leona for real if Minato doesn't start taking him seriously. After exchanging more words, Minato diffuses the tension by agreeing not to make any sudden moves. Satisfied, the attacker introduces himself as Kaga Shuji, the head of the Black Rebellion's Kabukicho branch. He reveals that his mission was to investigate the Black Mage, either to recruit or eliminate him. Kaga admits to torturing individuals associated with the Black Mage, only to be disappointed upon discovering that the person he has been hunting is just a kid aiming to dismantle the branch. Frustrated, Kaga tightens his grip on the knife and accidentally cuts Leona's neck. Realizing what he has done, he apologizes not out of remorse, but because he got too emotional while handling his weapon. He even takes a moment to admire the sight of her blood dripping from the blade. After witnessing Kaga's unstable behavior, Minato asks for his negotiation terms. Kaga, momentarily forgetting, then declares that he would rather torture and kill Minato in exchange for Leona's life. If Minato refuses and tries to escape, he promises to kill her instead. With that, he forces Minato to choose between his own life and Leona's. Without hesitation, Minato agrees to endure the torture. Overjoyed by his resolve, Kaga mocks Leona, asking if she finds Minato's courage admirable. Internally, Minato knows that no normal attack will work on him due to his magic barrier, so agreeing to the torture is his best option. However, Kaga demands that he deactivate the barrier, claiming that his suffering will be meaningless otherwise. This revelation surprises Leona, who now understands how Minato has been able to block all attacks so far. She worries about what might happen if he truly lowers his defenses. Minato, on the other hand, is shocked that Kaga is aware of his barrier and realizes his mistake in using it so openly earlier. Despite the risk, he deactivates it and asks if Kaga is satisfied. Without hesitation, Kaga launches a first-level lightning spell, specifically targeting Minato's vital points. Leona pleads for him to stop, but Kaga, caught up in his sadistic pleasure, refuses to listen. After a relentless assault, Minato feigns unconsciousness, while Leona blames herself for being too weak to help him. Seeing an opportunity, Kaga prepares another attack while taunting her. Determined to protect Minato, Leona tries to disrupt Kaga's spell, but he quickly sees through her plan. After knocking her down, he belittles her, calling her a weakling who doesn't know her place. He even blames her presence for Minato's downfall and moves in to finish her off, relishing the idea of watching her die in despair. At the last second, Minato springs to life and lands a devastating sucker punch on Kaga, disfiguring his face. In shock, Leona asks how he survived the attack after deactivating his barrier. Minato explains that he had secretly maintained a small hidden barrier just before the attack hit him, making it appear that he had dropped his defenses completely. Amused by his cunning, Leona nervously chuckles, remarking that only Minato could pull off such a trick. With the immediate threat neutralized, Minato heals Leona's wound with light magic, assuring her that she's safe. Feeling immense relief, Leona silently thanks her luck for having the Black Mage on her side. However, Kaga, now sporting a magically reconstructed face, rises again, infuriated by their arrogance. Impressed that Kaga didn't pass out from his speed-based combat magic, Minato remains on guard. Realizing that simple torture isn't enough for someone like Minato, Kaga decides to burn both him and Leona to death. As Kaga prepares a powerful fire-based attack, Minato finally grasps the full extent of his opponent's power, noticing that Kaga has been holding back all along as the intensity of his magic level keeps rising. Once the sigils for the spell are complete, Kaga unleashes a level 4 fire lightning compound spell, Fire Spark, aimed directly at Minato and Leona. Moments before the attack reaches them, Leona panics, convinced that Chrono won't be able to block it. Minato, however, remains calm and only activates his magic barrier when the fire gets dangerously close. To Leona's astonishment, a first-level defense spell completely nullifies a fourth-level attack with ease, leaving her in disbelief. Watching Minato effortlessly douse the fire, she feels an unexpected sense of relief just being by his side. The more she observes him, the more curious she becomes about the Black Mage's true identity. Realizing his fire attack has failed, Kaga bursts into laughter, praising Minato's strength. He admits he knew fire magic wouldn't work against someone like him, but he still has a few tricks left. Meanwhile, Leona, still confused, asks Minato why Kaga's magic hasn't faded yet, as it should have disappeared by now. Minato explains that Kaga is using sustainable magic, which allows him to maintain his spell for longer by continuously replenishing it. He likens it to how he uses wind for flight magic. Annoyed by his lengthy explanation, Leona reminds him that there's no time for lectures. Just as she warns him that the barrier might disappear soon, she realizes it's still intact and wonders how that's possible. Minato reassures her that, like Kaga, he can also use sustainable magic, so there's nothing to worry about. Hearing this, Kaga panics. Sensing his hesitation, Leona boldly tells him to surrender while he still has a chance. Kaga feigns fear before dropping the act and resuming his assault. Acknowledging Minato's strength, he finally unveils his hidden trick, increasing the power of his sustainable fire spell around Minato's barrier. Suddenly, Leona starts feeling weak, her body heavy, and she struggles to breathe. Kaga explains that by surrounding the barrier with fire, he has burned away all the oxygen inside. Without air, they will suffocate, and as the fire's temperature rises, even Minato's barrier won't hold forever. He offers Minato a choice: suffocate inside the barrier or burn outside it. Minato, unimpressed, yawns. Frustrated, Kaga demands to know if he even understands the dire situation. Minato calmly assures him that he understands it better than he does. Kaga maintains that no matter how gifted Minato is, Leona's life is slipping away and salvation is impossible. However, in a sudden twist, Leona's vitality returns, leaving the shocked villain staring in total disbelief. Minato points out that while fire can change the air, Kaga foolishly forgot that mana itself is woven into the atmosphere. Demanding clarity, the enraged Kaga listens as Minato explains the interplay between barriers and ambient magic before he sucks the oxygen from the flames using wind manipulation. Watching his scheme fall apart, Kaga descends into a panic over his loss. Before he can drift into a peaceful faint, Minato grabs him, refusing to let him escape into unconsciousness. Mocking the villain's obsession with pain, he banishes Kaga into the dark zone, a terrifying void of absolute silence and lightless misery. Desperate screams for help go unanswered in that endless vacuum. Meanwhile, Minato regroups with Leona, who warns him that the police are already closing in on the warehouse. He swiftly picks her up and takes flight, ignoring her cries as they vanish before the sirens arrive. From a safe distance, Leona finally realizes the Kabukicho branch is history. Minato, already focused on the next district, is called Chrono by his new partner. Leona asks to officially join his cause, admitting her lack of combat skill but offering her massive network of contacts to help reach his goals. Though he hesitates, Minato admits he's a softie for a sincere plea and agrees, much to her joy. She promises to manage his public image and recruitment so he can focus on the fighting. By morning, the news is buzzing with the warehouse raid and the Black Mage's victory. The broadcast is suddenly hijacked by a nationwide alert featuring a hooded figure. He introduces his group as Shadowbringer and identifies himself as the Black Annihilator, swearing to wipe out every criminal mage linked to the Black Rebellion. He issues a final warning: no injustice will be ignored, regardless of who is responsible. Watching this, a high-ranking rebellion member explodes in fury, though his partner remains dismissively calm, viewing the mage as a mere fly. Cooling his temper, the man puts his trust in their elite noble ally, the head of the Fuka family, Jin. After a tense meeting, Jin returns home, only to see the media trashing the nobility's incompetence. Public opinion is shifting toward the more effective special magic unit, making the nobles look obsolete. Enraged by the commoners' disrespect, Jin smashes a teacup against the screen and summons Shu. He seethes with a vow to show these peasants exactly what the useless nobility is capable of. Meanwhile, halfway across the globe, the streets of New York City descend into bloody mayhem as monsters launch a surprise assault on the population. The vibrant metropolis turns into a nightmare as terrified people scramble for safety while first responders struggle to contain the slaughter. Despite the brave efforts of the local forces, the sheer tidal wave of monsters proves to be completely overwhelming. While one officer desperately holds the creatures at bay, another frantically calls for SMAT reinforcements, only to be told that the calamity is spreading everywhere and backup is nowhere in sight. Violent explosions rock the city, leaving hundreds dead and thousands more injured in the chaos. Amidst this destruction, a massive leader emerges, preparing a level 5 blazing column fire spell that could turn the entire city into an inferno. Just before disaster strikes, a legendary noble magic user arrives, countering the strike with a level 5 titanic bubble water spell. This noble, identified as Mizuha, the father of Yuika and Ruka, effortlessly neutralizes the monster's attack before descending onto the battlefield. The first responders, in total awe of his power, receive orders to assist him in the containment efforts. Ignoring the crowd's admiration, Mizuha focuses purely on the fight, casting an even stronger water spell to drown the monstrous leader before it can even retaliate, ending the battle in his favor. With the victory secured, the responders surround Mizuha to praise his heroics, but the stoic professional brushes off their gratitude, insisting he was merely doing his duty. Soon, the mayor of New York personally thanks him for saving the city from total ruin. As Mizuha prepares to head back to Japan, skeptics in the crowd scoff at the idea of a Japanese noble acting so high and mighty, mocking Japan's weakened state. Mizuha overhears their insults but chooses to ignore them, his thoughts turning instead to the challenges back home, his daughters joining the special unit and the nation's declining reputation. Elsewhere, Yuika, Ruka, and their friends are recovering on the training field, still reeling from a brutal sparring session with Kusanagi. Ruka complains about his impossible strength, noting that the boy isn't even using his true power yet. Before they can dwell on it, Sanada and a group of trainees arrive with a new strategy. If over 100 of them attack him at once, they might actually stand a chance. Encouraged by their numbers, Yuika rallies the squad, confident that even Kusanagi cannot withstand such an onslaught. Unfortunately for them, he overhears the entire conversation and appears suddenly behind them, casually asking if they'd like to test that theory. Frozen in fear, Yuika quickly denies everything, claiming they were just making small talk. Unamused, Kusanagi declares their break is over and issues a new challenge: defeat him using every bit of strength they have. Seizing the opportunity, the squad launches an all-out assault, convinced their numbers will secure a win. However, Kusanagi barely lifts a finger, shielding himself with a basic level 1 barrier. When Yuika smugly tells him that won't be enough, he effortlessly upgrades to a level 4 high magic barrier, leaving the trainees dumbfounded. They intensify their attacks, but his defense absorbs every blow with ease. As frustration sets in, the squad realizes just how terrifyingly strong he truly is. When it's his turn to counter, Kusanagi gives them hell, effortlessly overwhelming every single one of them. As the dust settles, the trainees groan in pain, sprawled across the field in total defeat. Once training concludes, Yuika and Ruka check their phones and turn pale. Kusanagi, noticing their reaction, asks what is wrong, and the sisters look at him with dead seriousness, telling him that their father has finally returned to Japan. After leaving the training grounds, the sisters arrive at their family villa for a high-stakes discussion. A brief, awkward silence fills the room before Mizuha finally speaks, asking them about the special magic squad they recently joined. Yuika confirms they are indeed working with the unit. As the tension grows, Mizuha urges them to tell him more about it. Relieved that their strict father is actually showing interest, they eagerly describe the squad's positive impact on society and mention that their new teammates are incredible people. Ruka enthusiastically chimes in, boasting about how much their magic power and spell levels have improved in such a short amount of time. This is all thanks to Minato and the rest of the team. Toshiro, intrigued by their high praise for the boy, acknowledges that the youth possesses exceptional skills and has made significant contributions to society. However, as he sips his tea, one of the girls dares to compare Minato to their father, suggesting that the boy might even rival a magic noble of his stature. At this, Toshiro calmly sets down his cup and issues a sudden, blunt command. They are to resign from the special magic squad immediately. Stunned by this, the sisters demand an explanation. Toshiro, maintaining his cool, explains that the reputation of the magic nobility is already fading, which could lead to negative consequences for the nation. He insists that the nobles, not some special squad, are the true backbone of the country. Therefore, their leader, Minato, is doing more harm than good simply by existing. With that in mind, Toshiro forbids any further association with the boy. Furious, the sisters protest, calling his logic completely ridiculous. Unmoved by their anger, Toshiro orders them to obey as they always have, and turns to walk away. Before he can leave, Yuika, who has always followed her father's orders without question, firmly says no for the first time. She declares that she will never abandon the squad or Minato, as she believes he truly has the power to change the world. She argues that while the nobles have grown lazy and complacent, the squad trains them relentlessly for real combat. She notes that if their father had asked for cooperation, they would have gladly helped, but demanding blind obedience is a mistake. Hearing this, Toshiro coldly disowns her, forbidding her from ever calling herself a magic noble again. Ruka, ready to intervene, watches as Yuika simply nods and walks away without another word. Just before exiting, Yuika gives her father a final smile, assuring him that from now on, she will simply be Yuika. He no longer needs to worry about her tarnishing the family reputation. Once she is gone, Toshiro mutters about her defiance, but Ruka warns him that her sister has truly changed. Hoping to keep at least one daughter, Toshiro is met with further disappointment as Ruka follows Yuika's lead, renouncing her own noble status. Toshiro repeats the disownment, telling her never to use the family name again. Ruka happily accepts, thanks him for everything, and walks out, leaving him standing alone and muttering to himself. Now liberated from their father's authority, the sisters swap their noble attire for casual clothes and head toward a hotel, discussing their newfound freedom. As they walk, Yuika asks Ruka if she is truly okay with leaving their family behind. Ruka reassures her, saying that as her big sister, she would never let Yuika be alone. Touched, Yuika smiles and the two share a heartfelt hug. However, their joy is short-lived as they quickly face difficulties checking into a hotel. After exhausting every option, they try speaking with a manager, but their efforts are in vain. A full day of searching leads nowhere. Every hotel, rental property, and even internet cafe refuses to accept minors. Ruka could have lied about her age, but Yuika being so young makes that impossible. Defeated, they settle into a small cafe to rest and sip their drinks. Yuika laments the irony that they have plenty of money from their squad activities but nowhere to actually spend it. As they talk, two intoxicated young men approach their table and attempt to hit on Yuika right in front of Ruka. Before the situation can escalate, Ruka glares at them and warns them to back off or face serious consequences. Sensing the danger, the men immediately apologize and flee. Once they are gone, Yuika grins at her sister and suggests they have some fun while they are stuck outside. When Ruka asks about their housing problem, Yuika insists they can figure it out later. Deciding to make the most of their first night as independent sisters, they spend the evening shopping for clothes and stuffed animals, singing karaoke like carefree drunks, and simply enjoying themselves. By twilight, reality sets in once more, but Yuika expresses her deep gratitude to Ruka for making the night so special. She admits that having Ruka by her side makes the entire situation feel much less daunting. Accepting the compliment with a smirk, Ruka reminds Yuika that they still need to secure a roof over their heads. As they wonder who might take them in, Yuika receives a text from Minato. He clumsily asks for help with his phone, claiming he has forgotten how to use it again. The sisters exchange a knowing look and decide to visit him, hoping he will allow them to stay at his place for the time being. Upon their arrival, they ask if he will permit them to stay. Before answering, Minato invites them into his living room to discuss exactly what happened. After hearing the full story, he asks how they feel about their rebellious act, and the girls admit they were impulsive and immature. As he observes them, Minato notices not only their newfound honesty, but also how much closer they have grown as sisters. When they finish reflecting, Yuika apologizes for the trouble and repeats her request to stay since they have nowhere else to go. Minato pauses to consider the consequences. Since he has no romantic interest in either of them, he decides their presence isn't a problem and agrees. However, he warns them that his apartment is small and lacks the luxury they are used to. To his surprise, the girls don't care at all. Instead, they frolic around and chat excitedly like children. Watching them, Minato makes an unintentional remark about how easily they adapt, which unexpectedly flusters them. Suddenly, they find themselves lost in silly fantasies about living under the same roof as the strong and cool Kusanagi. Ruka's imagination runs so wild that her heart races with unfamiliar feelings, forcing her to calm herself down. Ignoring their flustered state, Minato casually asks if they plan to shower before bed. The girls instantly overreact, treating him like a pervert, but he remains unfazed and repeats the question until they answer calmly. Yuika goes first, leaving Minato and Ruka alone in the living room. During their talk, Minato praises their bold decision to leave home, admitting he didn't expect such defiance. Ruka agrees, noting it is the first time they have ever stood up to their strict father, who refuses to tolerate any independence. She expects that rather than changing, he will double down on his rigid ideals. Minato reminds her that Tushiru has a terrible impression of the squad, meaning there is no telling what he might do in the future. Before she can respond, Yuika emerges in her nightwear and urges Ruka to go next. Ruka quickly gets up and enjoys a refreshing bath. While she is gone, Yuika tells Minato how surreal it feels to be in his home. Unfazed, he reassures her that even though it's his first time hosting, he isn't worried. Yuika sincerely thanks him, and when he brushes it off, she chuckles. She tells him she's always known him to act as if everything is normal regardless of the situation. Minato assures her that as long as they are in his squad, they are his friends, and he will never abandon them. Hearing this makes Yuika's heart pound, but Ruka soon emerges looking elegant in her nightwear. Minato then takes his turn, leaving the sisters in silence to process everything. The next day, Minato meets his handler, Shidu, to get the updated training schedule. When he mentions the sisters are staying with him, Shidu flares up, questioning his indifference. Bewildered by modern youth, Shidu lectures him on common sense and the fact that Japan doesn't practice polygamy. On his way out, Minato considers finding a bigger place since 3 people in his apartment will be too cramped. Before leaving, he spots Sanada training alone and decides to check in. Spotting her in the yard, Minato calls out to ask why she's still pushing herself. Sanada admits she feels like she's falling behind the others. Even though her offensive magic has surfaced, her confidence remains low. She asks Minato to drop the formalities since she is technically his junior, and he easily complies. He encourages her to launch an attack spell, and when she wavers, he offers to coach her through it. Following his lead, Sanada takes her position and fires. Minato praises the attempt, assuring her that consistent effort will yield massive power. Despite his kind words, Sanada still feels like the weak link of the unit. Minato pushes back against her self-doubt, noting that he's seen her relentless work ethic firsthand. She eventually confesses that she only entered the force because being a holy mage is such a rarity, and she worries she'll never match the others. Realizing she's just venting, she tries to apologize, but Minato digs deeper, asking why she truly chose this life. Sanada explains that her grandmother was a holy mage who saved countless people during the great disasters, and she wanted to honor that legacy. Even so, she feels aimless compared to her ambitious peers. Minato immediately shuts down her negativity, pointing out her unique healing skills, her emerging offensive talent, and her grit. He tells her the why doesn't matter as much as what she chooses to do right now. This realization hits Sanada hard, making her see that she is already evolving. Overwhelmed with relief, she breaks down in tears. She later apologizes for being an embarrassing adult, but Minato tells her age is irrelevant in growth. From that moment on, Sanada begins to view Minato as a true hero who rescued her from her own shadow. Later that night, Minato shifts gears for his covert mission as the Black Mage. He meets with Leona, who has dug up dirt on the corruption within the magic nobility. He asks for the brief, but she playfully insists he put on the full Shadowbringer gear first. Once he's ready, she dives into reports of money laundering and embezzlement involving the high-ranking families. Specifically, the Fukas are rumored to be in bed with the Black Rebellion Syndicate. When Minato asks about the group's leadership, Leona points to Akudo, an infamous ex-noble who was cast out years ago. This connection makes the nobility's involvement seem even more likely to Minato. However, Leona cautions him that hard evidence is non-existent. It seems anyone who might whistleblow is being permanently silenced. She warns him that digging into this nest of vipers is incredibly dangerous. Minato asks for the digital files, and when she asks his plan, he simply states he's going to deliver justice. He vanishes into the night, focused on showing the villains no mercy. After his work is done, he returns to the apartment to unwind with Yuika and Ruka. While they sit in quiet companionship, Minato uses his phone to research his past life and the disasters from half a century ago. He finds that while the core history of Minato is the same, the power levels of modern mages are recorded as being much lower, which strikes him as bizarre. Furthermore, the records on noble families are suspiciously vague, omitting any real detail about their ancestral techniques or training. Watching this unfold, Minato, who still holds his memories as Ikami laments that the decline of modern mages wouldn't be so severe if his ancient magic tome still existed. Yuika points out that there is a total lack of data or books on high-level magic training, suggesting that someone might have intentionally erased them. Minato suspects the current head of the Mizuha family might hold some answers, but since information on the calamities is so rare, setting up a meeting seems nearly impossible. He racks his brain trying to pin down the origin and nature of these disasters, but no clear solutions appear. Yuika notices his brooding frustration, but chooses to stay focused on her own tasks. The following day, while the special magic unit is training, an urgent report of a detected calamity forces them to mobilize immediately. When they arrive, they are surprised to find Shu Fuka, son of Jin, standing arrogantly over a slain monster. Though confused, Minato stays calm while Shu mocks their late arrival, bragging about how his group handled the threat before the squad even got there. Noticing Minato's stern look, Shu smugly assures him no civilians were hurt and tells them to be more alert next time before walking away. Once he's gone, Yuika asks what Shu's problem is, but Minato is just as clueless. Over the next few days, the pattern repeats, calamities strike, and Shu's crew consistently beats the special magic unit to the scene, claiming every victory. Each time, Shu ridiculed them for being slow, using these moments to prove that the world still depends on the magic nobility. Yuika finally hits her breaking point when Shu calls the unit useless. After he leaves, she rants that this is the 5th time he's pulled this stunt, making it obvious that a hidden agenda is at play. Around this time, Shido suggests they are being sabotaged, as their intelligence reports are constantly delayed, and Minato struggles to find a fix since he can't sense these threats from a distance. Meanwhile, Yuika points out that Shu conveniently disappears whenever a dangerous demon-level boss actually shows up. At a dead end, Sonata pulls up her phone to show the team that the Fukas are suddenly receiving massive online praise, which is highly suspicious given their recent bad reputation. She also notes that Jin Fuka is about to hold a live press conference. The team gathers to watch as Jin thanks the press and addresses the failures of the nobility, specifically his son's behavior. In a shock move, Jin bows deeply and offers a public apology for Shu's actions. The reporters are stunned to see a noble show such humility. Jin takes full responsibility for Shu's upbringing and promises to make things right, while the media simultaneously discusses how Shu has been outperforming the special magic unit. Realizing his manipulation is working, Jin stands tall and addresses the shortage of competent nobles, promising new measures to fix the system. As the conference trends, Yuika is irritated to see half the comments supporting the Fukas, feeling like their hard work is being erased and mocked. Minato tells her to stay calm, insisting their mission hasn't changed regardless of public opinion and asking for their trust. Days later, Shido is called to a high-level meeting where he is told the squad is in jeopardy. When he tries to expose Shu's suspicious behavior, his superior shuts him down, accusing him of simply being antagonistic toward the nobility. Consequently, he pins the blame on Shido for endorsing the creation of the special unit and turning the nobility into enemies, claiming the fallout is entirely his fault. Shido tries to inquire if there is any insight into why their missions are being obstructed, but his boss snaps at him for even hinting at sabotage. The superior makes it crystal clear that the squad's life hangs on fixing their public image and playing nice with the high-ranking families. Otherwise, the SMT will be shut down for good. Meanwhile, Jin Fuka watches the pieces fall into place, smugly satisfied. He knows the masses are easily swayed by grand gestures and expects to crush the special unit entirely once public opinion is fully on his side. After a week of being sidelined, Minato and his team are lounging on the school rooftop, venting about their forced idleness over lunch. Ruka mentions that the Fukas have been intercepting all the recent calamities, but Ryuji points out the obvious. Rats within the police department are sabotaging the team. Minato agrees, noting that many officers have deep ties to the nobles and view the SMT as a direct threat to their influence. The ever-oblivious Yuika struggles to understand how this is happening, so Minato explains that their success has bruised the ego and reputation of the magic nobility. Internally, he suspects a darker link between the nobles and the Black Rebellion, making the squad's popularity a major problem for them. Frustrated, Yuika lashes out at the incompetence of the highborn families before briefly worrying if her own father is involved, though Ruka doubts it. Once lunch is over, Minato stands up and declares they are heading to the Mizuha estate to get some real answers. The sisters are hesitant given their strained relationship with their father, but they can't help but follow along. When they arrive at the villa, 2 female guards at the entrance immediately block their path. Even when Yuika and Ruka try to plead, the The guards reveal that their father has strictly forbidden his disowned daughters from stepping foot on the property. Just as the girls are about to give up, Minato steps forward as the SMT captain, demanding to see Toshiro. The guards tell him to book an appointment, but Minato loses his patience and considers forcing his way through. Before things escalate, Toshiro himself appears and, after sizing up the situation, allows them inside. On the way to the meeting room, Minato makes a cheeky comment about Toshiro's young looks, asking if he's the sister's brother, though the girls quickly clarify he is indeed their father. Once they are seated, Toshiro opens the conversation by accusing Minato of corrupting his daughters. Minato fires back, telling him that blaming others for his children's independence is just poor parenting, and asks why he isn't proud of how much they've matured. Toshiro stays silent, realizing Minato isn't there to mess around. Getting straight to the point, Minato asks if Toshiro is the one putting pressure on the SMT. Toshiro denies it, explaining that noble families rarely coordinate, meaning Fuka is likely acting on his own. He then acknowledges Minato's rising reputation as a student with the power of a hero and challenges him to a test of strength. Toshiro unleashes a massive, crushing wave of mana to show his dominance, but to his shock, Minato matches the pressure effortlessly. The rest of the team, including the sisters, are left trembling under the sheer weight of the magical aura. Once the dust settles, Toshiro praises Minato's ability to stand his ground. Minato dismisses it as simple magic control but notes that Toshiro was clearly holding back. Impressed by the boy's sharp intuition, Toshiro acknowledges the observation. Minato then pivots, asking why modern mages have become so much weaker compared to those of the past, prompting Toshiro to question exactly what he's basing that theory on.